Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Karen demands to ride a horse she's too big for. For context, I, female 16, work at a stable. It's mainly a learning barn that offers riding lessons and week-long camps for kids to come in and learn all about riding and horse care. We also offer trail rides for customers to come in and be led on an hour-and-a-half ride down a really nice trail. The situation mentioned above happened this past summer when I was the trail leader. We have fewer cases here, so we were allowed to run camps, lessons, and rides. We had a family come in to do an hour trail ride, mom, dad, and kid. The mom was extremely overweight, and anyone who knows anything about horses will know that a horse is not supposed to carry more than 20% of their body weight. We have several types of horses. The Clydes/Perch are the biggest horses we have available for customer riding and the only horses that would be able to put her on without the risk of causing harm to the horses. After we get all the necessary paperwork done for them to ride, some of the camp kids from that week start to help me bring out helmets and horses for the family. We put the kid on one of our small paint QH, and we put the dad on another one of our QH. Finally, it's time to put the mother on her horse, and we bring out the biggest Perch/Clyde we have, and she asked if she could have a smaller horse. So we brought out the smaller Clyde/Perch, and then she turned to her son's horse and requested one of the same size. His horse was so small that it just barely passed the size requirements to be considered a horse instead of a pony. When she said this, I took her aside and explained as politely as I could why I would not be able to do that. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, "I'm so sorry, but I really can't do that because a horse of that size would be too small for you. A horse is only supposed to carry 20% of their body weight, and any more than that could lead to serious back, leg, and shoulder injuries. And it also leaves them with a higher chance to colic if they drink, because the extra work would make them super hot." This woman's face became extremely angry upon hearing this, but she never said anything to me, and she got on the horse and we went for a ride. I didn't think much more of it until we got back and her husband came to pay for the ride, and he confronted me about how rude it was to say that to a paying customer, and told me that I should have just done what she had asked because only 1 hour wouldn't hurt the horse too bad. I told him exactly what I told her about the possible injuries, and he called me a jerk and said his wife was more important than the stupid horse, so I told him to buzz off. I do feel bad for having to deny her and for telling the man to buzz off, but I believe the horse's health is way more important. So, am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with? OP or the customer's husband? Please let us know. I wonder if the little horse thanked OP after this. That was a close one. Comply with the 30-year-old dress code? You got it, boss. The shelter I, 30 male, have been working at for a couple of years now is over 30 years old and is quite notorious for keeping things that way. The daily notes are physically kept in binders, 80s-style punitive measures are imposed on clients in conflict, and the electrical panels are labeled with cards that went through a typewriter. You get the idea. The floor supervisor, over 20 years in that position, emphasized that even though jeans were allowed, we needed to strictly adhere to the dress code. That meant button-up or collared shirts, no logos, only long pants/dresses, no hats unless you're outside, no visible tattoos, etc. In other words, dress nothing like the vast majority of the people we serve. We're meant to dress the way they should aspire to dress, said the supervisor. I was told other staff, including staff above my pay grade, have long hated the dress code and unsuccessfully tried to change it for years. None of them were bold little jerks like me, though. Given my previous experience with underserved populations, I also knew that this was a terrible idea. Generally speaking, what people in these communities lack in financial resources, they make up for in their ability to read people and navigate emotions. If they think you're an authority figure or acting inauthentic, many will outright write you off. And for the most part, they have a great social/emotional radar. The dress code said men's shirts must have visible buttons or a collar. I sewed 2 buttons near my hip on a plain t-shirt and wore it in. They said nothing the first time, but had a meeting where they weren't pointing out anyone in particular and updated that specific part of the policy to prevent me from doing it again. Next, I wore capris. After all, nothing about pant length was mentioned either. That time, the code was updated and we were informed via email. Still no one-on-one conversation about it. A few months and minor malicious compliances later, our workplace gave us logoed t-shirts with the institution's name and website on them. Hooray, we thought. We will at least be able to wear t-shirts now. Nope. After a week of several coworkers wearing the shirts they gave us, we got an org-wide email that the shirts did not comply with the dress code and should not be worn during work hours. Knowing me as the office rabble-rouser, several angry coworkers came to me independently to ask how they too could rebel. Enter the story's biggest malicious compliance. As a minimalist, I had no desire to hold on to a shirt that I would not wear. We had no input on the design/color of these shirts, and I simply did not need it taking up space in my closet. The most reasonable alternative would be to turn the shirt back in and explain that, so I did. Coworker 1 was moving soon and didn't need an extra thing to pack, so she also turned hers in. 2's partner hated dark green, the shirt's color, so he turned his in. This happened all the way to 25 total employees, with some borrowing others' excuses. After 5 days, the supervisor had a box with 24 shirts sitting in his tiny office. He actually has to keep them on his desk, and I can hear him bumping his hands against them when he uses the mouse. 3 months later, they're still there. He's not dumb. He knows those shirts are a "forget you" that lives in his office. He cannot donate them to the shelter due to some other ridiculous handbook rule about organizational spending, and he bikes 6 miles to work, so driving them home isn't a reasonable option. He's tried putting them in general office storage, but his boss has said the shirts are the supervisor's problem since he ordered them. Currently, he's just stuck. We know it bothers him, but he knows he can't bring it up since it's his own rule that prevents us from wearing them. No dress code changes so far, but the top of the year meeting regarding our handbook has dress code on the table. 3 of the people who return shirts are a part of that advisory board of 5. I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll finally be rid of some of the dumb, short-sighted elements of our dress code come February. Have you ever had a dress code that you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with it? Please let us know. No dress code will stop me from wearing my Live, Laugh, Love shirt. I almost got fired for crashing on the way to work. This story is a decade old, but another title reminded me of it. I was 18 and worked at a gas station. I was the type of employee that you could always rely on to cover someone else's shift. People would text me directly, and I would let the manager know when I showed up I was covering for so-and-so. I also owned a 50cc scooter to get to work since it was nearby. One night, I'm riding my scooter, hit a pothole, and hit pavement. Immediate pain. My face jumps out at me first. It feels like half the road now lives on the left side of my face. I try to sit up, feeling various scrapes. Passerbys call an ambulance. EMTs think I somehow got a 3rd-degree burn. It's excruciating. I go to the hospital, mostly because my helmet was actually a bicycle helmet. I didn't know it came with a scooter, and they're worried about a concussion. They have to keep me up until I get checked out by the doctor who isn't there yet. I realize around 1 a.m. that I'm not fit for work in the morning. Not wanting to wake up my bosses, I call the store and talk to the overnight employee. I tell them to tell the manager when they come in that I can't come in and will drop off a doctor's note when I can. Around 6 a.m., I am allowed to go home, drugged up but concussion-free. When I get home, I think I might try to start unraveling. I'm covered in scrapes and bruises. I have a giant bandage taped over myself that goes up to my collarbone. My face looks like someone glued loose gravel with red glue, and it got close enough to cause a black eye. I say forget it. Throw on a comfy tank and some shorts, trying my best not to have fabric over anything uncomfortable. I've been awake 24 plus hours. I'll deal with the carnage after I sleep. 2 hours later, I wake up to my mom screaming. I come out and she throws the phone at me. My assistant manager is now screaming at me. She said I can't tell another employee I'm calling out. I should have called her. She said if I wasn't there in 15 minutes, I was fired. She had a spa day with her mom planned and was not canceling to cover my shift. I hang up and ask my mom, what the heck? Apparently, I didn't hear my phone, and she answered, recognizing my assistant manager's name. She planned on explaining about my incident. When she answered, assistant manager assumed it was me and immediately started yelling the same as above. My mom got heated, yelling, "She was in an accident. How dare you tell?" instead of asking if she was okay. So I told my mom, "She wants me there in 15 minutes. What say you drive me up there?" I grab my doctor's note and we're off. I walk in the building like crap on a stick. Despite having multiple pairs, I wear my broken glasses. Unintentionally, I realize as I walk down the length of the store, I've developed a limp due to my left side being hurt. I didn't brush my hair. It's a wild mane that replaces my normally neat ponytail. Every minor abrasion on full display. The bandage clearly outlined in my tank. I see both manager and assistant as they see me. I lock eyes with the assistant and stare her down as I close the distance. My manager stutters out the question of, "What am I doing there?" I turn my attention to him. Assistant manager said if I wasn't here in 15 minutes, I was fired. I'm here, so do I still have my job? After, he assured me that of course I did and told me to go home and rest. I gave him my doctor's note with the hand that's afraid from wrist to halfway down my pinky. I turned to assistant. I told overnight person I'd bring in my doctor's note. Next time though, I'll be sure to call you at 1 a.m. if I need to, right? Seeing the look exchanged between the two, what I knew had been confirmed. Her calling me was her doing, and my manager didn't know what was happening. "I'm sorry about your spa day. If you'll excuse me, they didn't let me sleep until my x-rays came back. I'm exhausted." I left, feeling as good as you can feel with road rash. Crazy Karen somehow mistakes 14-year-old for a bartender. I was thinking about this yesterday and decided it might be good to post on this sub. Also, this happened a few years ago, so hopefully I remember everything right. We've got OP, me. We've got Karen, and we've got my dad. My dad used to own an ice rink where we lived. The ice rink had a bar in a pretty big lobby that was really long. Think about 30 feet or 10 meters. I liked to go behind the bar and was allowed to since my dad owned the rink, and I would get lemonade and occasionally get some for my friends too without charging them. One day I was behind the bar just getting some lemonade like I normally did. While my back was turned to the bar, I heard somebody sort of clearing their throat, as if to get my attention. I didn't pay any mind to it, assuming they were trying to get the actual bartender, Mary's, attention. After I finished filling up my lemonade, I turned around and saw this lady. She looked unhappy, and I immediately got nervous. I have social anxiety, and I tend to clam up around adults I don't know, especially when I was younger. Then this exchange happened. Karen: "Excuse me, but I've been trying to get ordered drinks, and you've been ignoring me." Me: "Ma'am, I didn't know you were talking to me. I don't work here. I'm only behind the bar because..." Karen cuts me off. "I need 2 lemonades, a Sprite, a Budweiser, and a Coors Light." Me: "Ma'am, for the last time, I don't work here. I'm 14. Please go see the actual bartender, Mary, and order your drinks." Karen, starting to get mad: "Then why are you behind the bar? Are you trying to steal drinks?" Me: "No, ma'am. I've been trying to tell you. My dad..." Karen starts screeching: "Get me whoever is in charge right now. You are behaving absolutely unacceptably and not getting me my drinks." At this point, I was on the verge of tears. Fortunately, my dad happened to be in his little office near the bar, which was more like a booth, and I could go get him. I told him what happened in a few brief words, and he actually knew who I was talking about. Apparently, he had kicked out the same lady a few weeks before for talking to Mary this way. My dad stood up and walked over to this lady. He's about 6.5 feet tall and weighs 210 pounds, so he was pretty intimidating. This lady couldn't have been more than 5'2" and maybe 130 pounds. So when my dad walked over to this lady, you could see a little bit of apprehension on this lady's face. She was still trying to maintain her bluster, but I could also tell she didn't want to be anywhere near my dad. Dad: "Hello, is there a problem?" Karen: "Yes. Are you the manager here? This bartender is absolutely awful and refusing to serve me drinks." Dad: "Ma'am, I'm the owner of this building, and that is my daughter. She's 14 and is not a bartender." There happened to be a framed newspaper with my dad on the front cover for buying the ice rink right where we were standing, which Karen saw. The color immediately drained out of her face, but for whatever reason, she still tried to throw a fit. "Well, she should have still served me drinks. I didn't know she was 14. Karen says something really stupid here. You should give me free skating passes for my trouble. How Karen didn't know I wasn't a bartender is a mystery to me. I was a little bit tall for my age, around 5'6", but the oldest you could have mistaken me for was maybe 16. I had braces, for crying out loud. My dad was getting pretty angry right now and was tired of dealing with this lady. Dad, actually, aren't you the lady who got thrown out a few weeks ago for being rude to the actual bartender? Because of how you've been treating our staff, you need to leave now, and you are banned from the building as well. But I didn't know. You can't ban me. You have no right. Dad, actually I do. Now get out before I either have to remove you myself or leave before I call the police to file a report for harassment. At this point, Karen realized he wasn't actually kidding and thankfully left. My dad made sure I was okay and I got some more lemonade. Anyways, thanks for reading about my Karen encounter. I hope you like it. Speaking of ice rinks, have you ever been ice skating? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know. Oh, I love ice. It's cold like my heart. Am I the jerk for telling Karen to shut up and mind her own business? I don't feel like the jerk at all. In fact, I feel peaceful as heck. My other friends and her are saying that I crossed the line and that if she can't give me her honest opinion, then we aren't friends at all. Now for the backstory. I've known this girl for 17 years. We've always been in the same group of friends. She was a foreign exchange student and I befriended her darn near the beginning. We were closer than anyone else. There was a lot of crap I overlooked from the very start, such as she was always saying that American culture was trash, or that we dressed, talked, or looked funny, that our food choices were gross and tasteless in comparison to her traditional meals. Whatever, she has her opinion. Over the years, she has continued her over-opinionated streak. And yes, I have defended myself against her BS multiple times in the past. We became more acquaintances than anything as the years progressed, but regardless, we still saw each other often. She's always up to date with the new trendy BS that surfaces social media, uses TikTok religiously at 35 years old, doesn't have a husband, doesn't have kids, nothing, which is important info for this. Recently, my husband and I divorced. I won't get into the details, but we have 2 kids. Now, this jerk found out about the divorce and immediately started cracking jokes about it. Maybe it's because your food is tasteless. Maybe it's because you forced him into marriage. Wrong, by the way. Maybe it's because you don't care about your appearance as much as you should. I've literally heard it all, which is bold of her, considering she has no kids or husband and can't hold a relationship for more than a couple weeks due to her social media obsession. So she's making the comments and I'm defending myself, calmly, until I finally snap because of her comments continuing. So I told her to shut her mouth, mind her own business, and stop acting like she knows things about marriage or anything else for that matter. She started crying and left. As I said in the beginning paragraph, people are mad at me and thinking I overreacted. Am I the jerk? To be honest, I kind of feel bad. So this happened on my lunch break earlier today. My dad's 60th is coming up, so I decided to get him some new copies of his vinyl records to play on a new record player he had just got himself. I decided to go to a well-known bookstore chain that has a surprisingly good music selection in the back of the store. I walk to the music section of the back, and just before I start browsing for what I need, I notice that the register/computer is off and the desk is completely empty. Usually with music, you check out here and not the rest of the store. I walk over to the register and inspect to make sure it's closed. Oh well, I guess the policy means check out up front. Here, I notice that there are 3 other people in the music section. 2 guys are sifting through the CDs, and a third man is a little bit behind where I'm standing, holding a pack of CDs in one hand and staring at his phone. I begin to browse through the vinyls, and I end up calling my mom and have her search through my dad's collection to make sure I'm not buying a copy of something he already has in good condition. So I'm there going through the albums, reading out their names to her. Ultimately, the call lasts around 8 minutes. Just before hanging up, I notice the man with the CDs has moved to a little bit behind me, the same CDs in his hand while he's kind of staring around. I don't think anything of it, and I spend another 2 to 3 minutes there and then make my final selection. With my vinyls, I once again go check the closed register, just to make sure it's closed and the sensors in the hallway won't go off when I move to enter the other part of the store. Before I step off, CD guy approaches me. Guy: okay, I'm ready to check out. Me: oh yeah, it looks like checkout is up front. Begin to walk to the front of the music section. Oh, up front? I see. I walk through the store and I hear him walking to catch up with me, and here I realize what has happened. I veer off to the nearest bookshelf and pull the first book I can off the shelf and pretend to go through it, and I see him stopping behind me again to wait. I give him a weird look, and we awkwardly stare at each other for a few seconds before I see it click on his face. He makes a sharp breath and then scurries away towards the front register. This man had wasted a good 15 or so minutes standing behind me waiting the whole time he was ready to check out. He has to be the most patient man ever. I guess my phone call, picking up albums and saying their names then putting them down, sounded like inventory. I feel kind of bad for him, but then again, it's not like I did anything wrong. Thanks for reading. Am I the jerk for canceling my sister's parking pass without telling her? I currently work for a huge hospital in the downtown core of a huge city. I don't drive because I live downtown, so there's no point in me driving when I can take the subway. Recently, my sister got a job in the downtown core but was paying $300 for parking a month. My parking for the hospital is $100 a month, and since I don't drive to work, I offered her my parking pass so she could save money. She is also university educated and makes way more than I do, so $100 parking downtown is a steal. I told her the parking would be a good 10-minute walk up a hill from her office and she agreed. The first days of the parking, all she did was complain about how she now had to go to work early because it was so far and how it's taking up all her time. I asked her if she wanted me to cancel the pass since winter is coming and I know walking everywhere isn't the best. She said no and wanted to keep the parking. My sister is on rotation, which she does evening shifts and the pass works. Last night I was sleeping and at 10:30 she's calling me yelling, calling me a jerk, worthless, and hanging up the phone on me while I was trying to send her the map of the parking so she could find another exit. There's 12 exits in the parking lot because the parking pass gates at the exit she was at wouldn't open. I asked her if she checked the other exits and she said she did. Magically, there was an exit open with a cashier 20 feet from where she was in her car trying to get out and ended up getting home on time. I felt bad for my sister because I wouldn't want to be in that situation either, so I went to the parking office at my hospital and they said she never entered the parking, so she didn't scan her pass, which means when she scanned her pass to leave, the gates didn't open because there was no record of her entering the parking lot. I told her that's why the gates didn't open and that I think I deserve an apology for waking me up at night and being mean to me while I was trying to help her. But instead, I got verbatim a text this morning, "I'm not apologizing to you because you're a stupid jerk." I'm tired of being treated like this by my own sister over a parking pass that my boyfriend or best friend could also use since they work in the downtown core as well and wouldn't call me names. Would I be a jerk for just canceling the parking pass without her knowing? Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my dad's retirement home fees? My parents divorced when I was a baby, but my mom encouraged him to have a good relationship with me. However, my dad was never interested in that. He'd come see me for a few hours on the weekends and call it a day. He wasn't a constant in my life, but I liked him and enjoyed his visits. He remarried shortly after his divorce and had 2 more kids that I would play with occasionally. As I was growing up, he and I had arguments about how he'd treat my siblings and how he treated me. My dad adored his other kids, and he'd take them on trips, go to their school events, and pay for whatever they needed. I invited him to all my school plays, graduations, etc. He never came. I won't lie, it hurt. I was his first kid, and he didn't seem interested in me. Plus, he was very vocal about his dislike towards my mom, something that I hated because she was the one taking care of me. When I went to college, he agreed to pay half of the expenses. I was thankful for this, and I thanked him each time he'd send a check. He came to my graduation ceremony, and when it was over, said that his responsibilities towards me were over and he didn't owe me anything anymore. He didn't need to say it, but it was a goodbye. It broke my heart. He didn't return my calls or reach out to me in the following years. Yesterday, I received a call from my brother telling me that my dad's health had deteriorated and the best option for him would be a retirement home. His second wife divorced him too. My dad is on the older side, so I wasn't surprised. My brother spent like half an hour on the phone describing this place that would cover his needs, make him comfortable. Turns out, this place is expensive as heck, and he wants us to pay for his stay there. Monthly, I'd be paying around $2,000, so would my siblings. I told him I couldn't afford to pay that amount annually, much less during what's going on. He didn't take it well, and shortly after, I received a call from my sister demanding an explanation. I told her that I didn't make enough money to support myself and pay for my share of his stay in the home, to which she said that I was ridiculous because I wasn't married nor do I have kids, so basically, where was all my money going then? I told them that we could look into other retirement homes or hire a nurse, but apparently I'm being cruel and ungrateful because our dad deserves the best care he can get and the home is convenient for all of us, close enough to our own houses so we can visit him or be there in case of an emergency. I told them that if they were not going to make an effort and look into other options, then I wouldn't either, and I wouldn't pay my share. Before I hung up, my sister told me she'd sue me for negligence. Like, what the heck? I don't know how to feel about all of this. He did pay for half of my college tuition, but he was a detached parent who made it very clear that I was more of an economic burden than a kid he loved. Am I being ungrateful? Should I suck it up and pay? Am I the jerk? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you pay or not? Please let us know. No, and neither should he. Next. Dude, really? My store has a weekly $5 off a certain amount sale each Saturday. No problems there. It's the digital coupon for this sale that bothers me. Do you know why? Because it doesn't get priority over other coupons during checkout. What happened tonight really put that in perspective. There's an older man, possibly in his 60s or 70s, who I only see on Saturday for the sale. Normally he's really calm, but tonight he acted different after I told him his total. The register didn't take his $5 off coupon. This time he had an unused $3 off coupon that usually takes priority during checkout. He told me the small bowl of dog food should be free because of a vendor coupon, and it was. After checking and adding up his savings, we saw it wasn't $5 off. He asked if I could just knock off the $2 since the register chose the wrong coupon, and I told him I'm not in control of which coupon the register uses, and he looks very disappointed. Old man. So, there's nothing you can do about this giving me the wrong deal? How long have you been working here that they haven't shown you how to do that? That makes no sense. Just go in and take the $5 off instead. That, or change the price since I'm regular. Me. I'm sorry, but I can't do anything about this. If there's a coupon that's less than our current sale, then it takes priority. This has nothing to do with my decision. I can ring everything back up and try again, but if the $3 off is all it'll do, my hands are tied. He looks mad. I've never seen him frown, let alone look or sound angry. He tells me to take an item off to see if it'll work, like that would change anything. But I do it anyway to prove a point. $3 off coupon pops up again, and now he's finally calming down, only to see it was still there. Old man. Now I know you're doing it. There's no way it would use the same coupon twice. I don't want $3 off. I want $5 off. Fix it, or I'm calling your manager up here to do it for you. Me. Sir, I've done nothing but scan your items, hit total, and tell you what to pay. There's no decision on my part. There's also no change I can make on this transaction. I have nothing else to tell you. He looked so mad. Old man. Then take all of it off so I can go somewhere else. I'm tired of all these stores telling me how my money works. Thanks for nothing. Me. Okay, I'll take everything off. Have a good night. He grabs his buggy by the handle, swings it off sideways, hitting another woman's buggy. She wasn't paying attention, so she basically got hit by the handle of her cart out of nowhere. I told him it'd be best if he didn't come back here because he'll be asked to leave on site. He'll be banned by Monday. All of this over $2 extra. Shameful. By the way, I was the manager tonight. He would have had to ask me to fix a problem for myself. He probably assumed I was the cashier because mine was in the bathroom. Insurance company didn't approve tests requested by my doctor. Ends up losing my company. The company I work for provides free insurance for all employees. I've been working in my company as a finance manager for 13 years, and the company has been dealing with a famous insurance company for the last 10 years, providing insurance policies for employees. In the span of 10 years, I think I must have used my insurance 3 times. I'm a young man, healthy and athletic, and didn't really face any health problems. That all changed a couple of months ago when I suddenly gained too much weight and I started having some breathing difficulties. So I went to my doctor who, after the checkup, asked me to do a normal blood test, a cholesterol test, and a vitamin D test. No problem, my insurance will take care of that. Or at least that's what I thought. When I submitted the application for approval, they approved the blood test only. I was furious. I went ahead and did all the tests and paid for the ones that the insurance didn't approve. After that incident, I called the broker, who by the way I personally know, and told him what happened. He started making up excuses and defending the insurance company. At the end of our conversation, I told him one thing. Make sure to tell them that this mistake will cost them a lot. My company will not renew the contract with them. He started laughing and replied, "It's not up to you to decide if the contract will be renewed or not." I told him, "Oh yes it is." What they didn't know is that my company asked me a couple of days earlier, since I'm the finance guy, to try to find another insurance provider that will give us the same benefits for less, or to get a better deal from the same provider. At first, I really didn't want to find another provider, since we've been dealing with that company for 10 years. I thought I would be able to get a better price from them. It all changed that Friday afternoon. After the weekend, I started searching for another insurance provider. I got multiple offers and made a comparison table between the current company and all other offers. After 3 weeks of searching and negotiating, I was able to narrow it down to one provider who will give the same benefits for 30% less. I was ecstatic. During the next board meeting, I made a presentation for the shareholders. They were happy that this will save them a lot of money. I'm not going to give exact figures, but the contract itself is in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars. After all was agreed, and when the renewal date came, you should have seen the look on the old insurance provider's face when they became aware of what happened. They asked for a meeting in our office, and they offered to give us a 25% discount for us to stay with them. I declined the offer with a smile on my face and said this would be impossible now because the new contract was signed already. You're blocking the drive-thru. This happened earlier today. I drive a cement mixer and was just getting done pouring a drive-thru for a new Chick-fil-A going up in the area. The drive-thru is fresh and wet cement. There are construction fences all around, but the main building structure is completed. The fences all say, "Stop, construction staff only," except for one that has a Chick-fil-A coming soon sign. I'm washing down the truck when I hear loud honking, not thinking anything of it as I'm in a shopping center. I keep washing the inside of the truck down. I then hear more honking and look over to the front to see a Karen, entitled Mom, with her head out of the window. Full Karen haircut, then screaming, "Move out of the way! You're blocking the drive-thru!" I see she has 2 empty car seats in the back and a sticker in her window saying "Baby's on board." I'm glad her kids weren't in the car when this happened. I'm not a fan of her language. I came down off the ladder to go and explain that it's not open yet. As I walk towards the car, she starts moving her car closer to me. She's now about 2 feet from the front of my truck. My truck is back to the building. I keep thinking, how exactly does she expect me to get out? As I get to her window, I let her know nicely that Chick-fil-A location here is not open yet, and I inform her that she will need to move back so I can move my truck from the fenced-off area. Entitled Mom is having none of it. She is adamant that I move my truck out of the way so she can go through the drive-thru. Well, I tried, I thought. I asked her to move her car back so I can move my truck out of the fenced area. Once again, she refused to comply and started beeping her horn again. I've had it. My truck horn, for those of you who don't know what one sounds like, is very loud. If you're too close, they can scare you and even give you a ringing in your ears. As she was refusing to move and constantly honking her horn, I decided to show her mine. Honk, honk! And I started to move forward. Entitled Mom moved her car back quickly. She must not have checked her mirrors or blind spot because she backed up into a stop sign that was about 75 feet away. Of course, Entitled Mom got out and came over to start blaming me for her own actions. I forced her to back up into the sign. I am 100% at fault for her car damage, and I rushed her car so she had to avoid me by backing up as fast as she could. I loved this one. Entitled Mom called the police soon after. The site foreman saw the entire event, but he doesn't speak much English and likely already had to deal with various people trying to get into his site, so he just sat back and watched until the police arrived. We each told our stories, and of course, Entitled Mom made hers sound like it was a life or death situation where she was a kind woman just trying to make it to the new Chick-fil-A for lunch, and I was blocking it just to be cruel to her for no reason of her own. That without warning, I charged her vehicle and forced her to rush back and into the stop sign. The officer came over and asked if it was true. I replied, "No, sir. I have a dash cam with audio. You can see it if you'd like to on a computer." Luckily for me, our foreman offered his laptop. Entitled Mom's story fell apart quickly. The officer's face turned to a frown that I swear could have made the Pope feel guilty. He walked over to her, went straight to his handcuffs, and began to read her rights to her. Entitled Mom was charged with obstruction of justice, reckless driving, and misuse of 911. As she was being placed in the back of the police charger, I saw a man coming over with the 2-kid stroller that had 2 babies riding in it. The officer explained the situation to him, and he honestly didn't look surprised. He seemed to just nod and walked quietly over to the car, took pictures, and unloaded his kids with the stroller and left. I feel bad that he had to go through that, but I'm under the impression that it wasn't the first time she has done something like this. I didn't press charges, but I reported everything to my company for their discretion to. I feel like I've run into more and more of these people since all of this lockdown began. Just info, my dashcam isn't cheap. It's built into the truck and has a back and front camera with a microphone that activates when the parking brake is set. When driving the truck, it is pretty loud, and that microphone wouldn't pick up anything but engine noise, which is why it's activated when parked. Speaking of drive-thrus, what was the last drive-thru you went through? Please let us know. McDonald's 3 days ago. Yes. Am I wearing an orange apron? I'm a disabled, overweight, and scary-looking lady. I'm into wood art and generally doing do-it-yourself projects at home in Scotland. I'm also a British Army veteran. Due to a back injury I sustained in the military, I can't walk more than a few meters, so I get around on a mobility scooter, complete with Armed Forces veteran stickers on it, front and back. I'm proud to have served. My local-ish big box do-it-yourself store famously wears orange. I also believe this company is owned by the same folks that own a US big box store that famously wears orange. I go fairly often enough that I know where many things are. Dressed in jeans, a floral print shop, and slip-on shoes. No orange anywhere. I was down the electrical supplies aisle looking for just the right light switches and sockets for the remodel I'm doing in my long hallway at home. I pick one up every now and then to match with the color swatch I have brought with me to see how they look. Most of them I put directly back on the hook I picked it out from, and the others go in this basket on the footplate of my scooter. Also in the aisle is an old man. I'd say he's probably in his 80s. He's looking at the shelves, but seemingly rather confused. Being nice, I ask him if he's okay. That's mistake number 1. He tells me he's looking for an adapter so he can plug in his electric toothbrush to charge. I know exactly what he needs and show him exactly where they are. Mistake number 2. He smiles and gives me a grateful "thank you," and off he goes happily with his adapter in hand to the tills. I feel good. I've helped someone out. So, I go back to my own shopping, or at least I try to. Excuse me. I turn to see a young man with a handful of different switches. Which of these should I use for an internal switch for an external light? I look as I'm feeling chuffed with being able to help. Mistake number 3. I point to one that has a light on it so you can see when the switch is on. I'd probably use that one, so you know if the light is on or off if you can't see the light itself. He smiles happily, dumps all the other switches on a shelf, and starts looking at other items on the shelves. So I go back to my own shopping, or at least I try to. Again, enter Karen. Excuse me? Mistake 4. Yes, I reply. Where do I find that stuff to put on walls to fix a hole? Me. It's down the other end of the store, somewhere near the painting supplies, somewhere near the tills. Yes, but where? And which shelf? Not sure. Just take a look down there. A member of staff might be able to help better. Karen. I need you to show me. Sorry, just look down there. I'm about to pay for my shopping. But you need to show me. I don't know the right stuff. Me. Look down there. There's a big banner by the right aisle. There may be someone there who works here. But you work here. It's your job to help customers. Show me where it is and what I need. Me, getting annoyed now. It's not my job. I don't work here. Am I wearing an orange apron? Ask someone wearing an orange apron. They will help you. I start trying to roll my scooter forwards towards the tills. Karen, faster than a speeding bullet, steps directly in my path only an inch or two in front of me. Now, these scooters are heavy and solid and won't take damage from hitting an ankle. There was absolutely nothing I could do to stop quickly enough. Karen shrieks. You hit my leg. You tried to run me down. Ow! And the tears flow. Her shriek alerted a couple of staff members who come running. She ran me down. I want the manager. I want police. I want an ambulance. I want her fired and arrested. Then a mature-looking man in a suit with a large orange badge with his name and the word manager on it comes running up, also alerted by the shriek and shouting. He, manager, asks what happened. Karen: "Your assistant in the lazy cripple chair?" "Yes, really." "Tried to hurt me. I want her arrested and fired, and I'll sue the store for my injuries." Manager: "What assistant? This lady doesn't work here." "Yes, she does, and she tried to run me down. My ankle is probably broken." Note: she's still standing, stomping around, shouting, and generally not behaving like someone with a broken ankle. Maybe a spoiled toddler though. Me: "She asked me where something was. I told her where to look. She got demanding and started behaving like a spoiled kid, and then deliberately stepped in front of me when I went to leave. No way I could stop in time." "Liar! You do work here. I saw you helping 2 people. Him!" pointing at the young man who stopped to watch the commotion. Me: "Yes, I helped, out of the goodness of my heart because I'm a nice person. That doesn't mean I work here." Young man: "Yeah, she was nice enough to help me. I asked her because I saw her helping out an old bloke. I knew she didn't work here." Manager: "Yeah, she doesn't. Let's go back to the office and talk about this. Then we'll see what needs to be done." Karen: "And you'll call the police and an ambulance and fire her." So off we go to the office. Karen remembers her broken ankle and starts putting on a deliberate limp on the wrong leg, moaning all the way to the office about her broken ankle. In the office, the manager invites Karen to sit. I'm barely in the office as my scooter doesn't have the turning circle to get further in. Manager: "Let's start with the CCTV and see what happened." He turns the CCTV monitor around so we can all see it. He presses some buttons and runs the video back to where I ride into the aisle. I'm seen looking at products. I'm seen talking to the old man. I'm seen taking him to a shelf and passing an adapter to him. I'm seen talking to the young man and pointing at a product in his hands. I'm seen talking to Karen and pointing down the store. She's seen looking angry, with fists clenched, talking at me. I'm seen moving off. She is seen rushing past me and deliberately stepping in my path where I obviously don't have time to stop. Just so you know, I'm a retired police officer. Do you really want the police and an ambulance? Your ankle is clearly not broken, and it's clear what really happened. Do you really want to get charged for wasting police time? They do that these days, as the police are short on manpower and won't thank you for calling them for what is clearly your own fault. They may even charge you with a serious crime with what I and my staff heard. Or will you just leave the store and not come back? But… Manager: "Really?" Karen wilted. She stands and with no sign of a limp walks out with a member of staff escorting her meekly out. I was thanked for my patience and handed a gift card for your trouble, and so you're not putting off using our store. I paid for my wares using my gift card, which covered the whole cost, plus some more credit remaining on the card for my next visit. I may not help anyone next time though. To clarify a couple of points. Firstly, yep, I think I'm scarily ugly, but only physically. I know this because I have a mirror. Halloween has nothing on me. Unfortunately, I need to look at myself when I brush my hair or put my makeup on. Otherwise, I'd ban mirrors from my home. Inside though, I think I have a good soul. I'm not always perfect, not always kind. I've learned that sometimes kindness needs to be tempered with a reality strike or unhappy truth, and certainly not always right. I do try to be decent to people though, just don't mistake my kindness as a weakness. Secondly, apparently the UK big box store that famously wears orange is not the same company as the US big box store that famously wears orange. My mistake. Maybe I should have researched that first. Still, I suppose it's an understandable error when you look at the two company styles. Thirdly, in reality, I will still be helpful when I can, and if the person asking for help is respectful, polite, and deserving of kindness. I'm naturally a nice person, in my humble opinion. I've tried acting nasty, but my friend always laughs at me. I'm not very good at it. I'll stick to being the genuine me. Speaking of do-it-yourself projects, have you ever done any do-it-yourself projects? And if so, what kinds? Please let us know. I'm getting ready to paint my cabinets. They're going to look marvelous. No changes can be made without the account holder. A recent story reminded me of this act of malicious compliance by a family member. This family member's spouse was involved in an accident. They were in ICU for months and would face permanent disability upon retiring home. They didn't want to leave their home. It was close to the best hospital in the region and it was their forever home, so plans began to renovate it for accessibility. In addition to the renovations, a wheelchair van was going to be needed along with other medical equipment for home use. As she worked on all of this, It was clear that large expenditures were going to be needed and it was going to take time to draw money out of long-term savings and retirement accounts, so she called the credit card companies to get their limit increased. Sadly, before the renovations were complete, her spouse passed away after almost 6 months of hospitalization and therapy. Now, attention turned to final arrangements. The couple had always been very frugal and maintained nearly perfect credit. All cards were being paid on time, and despite carrying a balance on some cards from the construction, demolition had already started, so renovations had to continue, but at a slower pace. Money was now coming in from those long-term savings. The problem is, one major credit card company refused to work with her. She tried to access the account and was told, "Sorry, I have to speak to the account holder." She explained that her spouse had passed away and she was wanting to pay what was left on the card. She also explained that she was an account holder. Evil Bank stated that she was not on the account and she was merely a card holder and she had no rights to the account. The person on the phone explained that her husband opened the account without her and just gave her the card. She just didn't understand how credit cards worked. This was a lie. The couple had always been joint account holders on everything since they were first married for exactly this reason. They had done extensive estate planning and made sure that all their assets were protected in trusts should the worst occur. They knew their kids would be cared for and their partner would be able to access everything. Also, she ran the couple's business for over a decade, navigating a sea of regulations, insurance company billing, and payroll, finances, and taxes. Needless to say, she did not enjoy being condescended to. Unfortunately, Evil Bank would not budge. They would not allow any access to the account for any reason, but for some reason, they didn't cancel the card after finding out the sole account holder had passed away. This back and forth went on for weeks with multiple calls to the Evil Bank and trying to escalate the issue to supervisors to address the state of the account. In a final attempt to show Evil Bank that they were hurting themselves by this. "So, I'm unable to access any part of the account, even to make a payment?" Evil Bank: "That's right." "So, the account is going to be closed?" "No, only the account holder can do that." "Even though the account holder has passed away?" "Only the account holder, ma'am." "So what does that mean for cardholders and being able to charge on the account?" "Only the account holder can deactivate a card or modify the account." "So what happens if a cardholder uses their card?" "They can continue to use the card until the account holder tells us otherwise." "The deceased account holder?" "Yes. I can't help you with anything else. You need to put the account holder on the phone if you want to change anything or make a payment." "No, that's fine." She broke down crying immediately after, but decided that they set the rules, so she would play by them. All the final expenses, medical bills, and as much construction cost as possible was put onto that credit card. She maxed it out and then let it sit until the credit card company started calling for payment. "I'm sorry. Per your policy, I'm just the card holder and I'm not responsible for any balance." "Ma'am, this balance needs to be paid or it will affect your credit." "It better not. I'm not on the account. This is an illegal collections call and I will be reporting it to the FTC and the Attorneys General in your home state and mine. I still have his number on speed dial. You can make your case to the court." She was used to getting medical insurance companies to pay claims for the last decade or so. You didn't want to play hardball with her. Remember how all the assets were in trusts? On paper, her partner had no assets to place a lien on. All the cash in the joint checking account had been used to pay expenses for the last several months, and withdrawals from long-term savings were sent to her account, not the joint account. They had agreed to move all exposed assets shortly after her partner regained consciousness, fearing the worst. Plus, all the income from the business had been brought home in her name for more than a decade, so she would actually get some kind of social security payment when she got older. So not only did his estate have no assets to go after, he didn't have an income for the last decade. Evil Bank was left with a maxed out credit card and no assets in the estate they could file against for payment. The handful of other credit card companies worked with her to raise limits temporarily or remove daily spending caps for large expenditures, and they were all paid without a single missed, late, or partial payment. Evil Bank had to eat a 5-figure loss, all because they decided the wife didn't deserve to be on the account from day one. She had every intention to pay every bill and expense. She has never been one to try to scam or cheat anyone. She gave Evil Bank every chance to accept money for the bill. They repeatedly refused to acknowledge her as a spouse, but she sure liked the irony of the only company that refused to acknowledge the death of her spouse ended up paying for the funeral expenses. "Yesterday, I tried to keep some kids safe on a mountain bike trail. Then the mom threatened to knock me flat." I was out at my local mountain bike trail center yesterday. It was a Sunday, dry, nice day. Lots of families out. There's a run, maybe about 30 meters, consisting of 4 or 5 berms, tight turns with high banks, and then a jump. It's a really good jump for practicing on, so I'm doing little loops here. There was a woman standing on top of the first berm, 30 meters away from the jump. This is mildly important information. Taking pictures and not actually watching the mountain bikes coming towards her. This is a super dangerous place to be. If someone comes in wide on the berm or slides over the crest, they're taking her down with them. She's not technically in my way though, so I just kind of think, your funeral, and get on with my riding. I do a few loops on this little stretch, and then after maybe 4, there's a toddler, basically as young as I've ever seen someone ride a bike without training wheels, whatever age that is, and maybe 6 years old, just kind of frolicking on top of the jump. I yell, "Move out of the way!" a few times, but they don't. I swerve off the trail, come to a stop, double back, and tell them, in a tone I would describe as very stern but not scolding, that hanging out, not moving in the middle of a high-speed mountain bike trail is not only dangerous for me, but extremely dangerous for themselves. At this point, Berm Lady is jogging over, screaming, not yelling, screaming, "Do not talk to my kids like that!" So I tell her, or attempt to, she's just repeating her screaming at me at this point, that I wouldn't have to talk to her kids that way if she had been keeping them safe, or had taught them how to stay safe in what is an inherently dangerous environment. At this point, she says, "I'll knock you flat." At which point I tell her I will defend myself if she attempts anything on me or my bike. She then plays the victim and says, "I can't believe you'd hit me. I can't believe you threatened me." For reasons I still don't really understand, at this point I begin again trying to explain how dangerous her kid's behavior was, not just for me, but for themselves. But she just keeps shouting, "Who do you think you are?" I say, "My name is OP," but she cuts me off with, "I don't care who you are." So I asked her, "Then why the heck do you keep asking?" She then demanded I apologize to her daughter for my language, and I told her she had lost the right to ask me to do anything and expect me to accommodate when she threatened me. She repeats her demands, and over her non-stop screaming, I attempt to tell her that I promise hearing my language is a lot less dangerous to her kid than being mowed down by a mountain bike. I swear. Something about having kids that aren't old enough for a parent to have grown to resent just a little bit turns people into psychos. Speaking of mountain bikes, have you ever ridden mountain bikes? Or any kind of bikes? Please let us know. Oh, I love mountain bikes. Am I the jerk for being mad at my husband who was going to give away $10,000 to his sister without even asking me about it? On Saturday morning, I noticed my husband was sending a lot of text messages back and forth. He's usually not much of a texter. He left the phone next to me to charge while he is in the other room. The phone kept lighting up with text messages when I decided to open it up to see what the big discussion was about. I know some couples view it as a big breach of trust to read through a significant other's phone, but my husband and I do it regularly, so this was not a huge invasion of privacy on my end. We both have nothing to hide, and it has never been an issue before. Anyway, of course I saw something on the phone that I shouldn't have that got me upset. For background, my husband is 34, I'm 32, and his sister is 31. She's in this story. Husband and I have been together for 10 years, married for the last 4 years. We are all college educated with jobs now. My husband and I each make good salaries, around $150,000 each. We own our house. We still have about $60,000 in student loans I'm working to pay off. Luckily low interest rates, so I just pay the minimum. We have about $40,000 liquid in savings, so we are doing good financially, but still need to build up more savings as we will probably try to start a family in the next 1 to 2 years and want to be prepared for an emergency and have a rainy day fund. Anyway, my husband's sister is trying to buy a 1-bedroom apartment in New York City. I saw in the text messages that my husband offered to give her $10,000 for her down payment. The money in our savings is our money. Our bank accounts are 100% combined. My husband manages 99% of the finances because I prefer not to deal with it. However, it is understood we consult each other regularly on major purchases. He did not ask me if I was okay with him giving this money to his sister. She didn't ask. He offered. I immediately confronted him, calmly, and was like, "Hey, did you tell your sister you would give her $10,000? He said yes. I asked him when he was going to tell me. He said he probably wasn't. He figured I wouldn't notice and said he didn't think I would care about the details. I said, do you think $10,000 is a detail? He said, no, that is a lot of money. I should have told you about that. Are you okay with it? I said no, I don't think I am. Anyway, we decided in that moment not to give the money. He said he would tell his sister and she would understand. He wanted the issue to go away after that. But I'm still mad. I said this was a big breach of trust. I let him control all finances because I trust him to never, ever take advantage of my ignorance. Shouldn't you be able to trust your husband? So now, I don't have that full amount of trust I had before, and I want to open my own bank account, which frankly, I should have anyway. But am I the jerk for being totally upset and feeling betrayed about this? I grew up poor, and $10,000 is a ton of money to me. I mean, to most people, right? I am horrified he would consider gifting it away and not even telling me. Edit. Good lord, this blew up. Thank you to all who have taken the time to respond. There are a few questions being asked over and over again that I figured I could address up top. I really appreciate everyone's thoughts. We don't check each other's phones because of trust issues, but I understand why some of you think this is the case and why it signals a bigger issue. I'll try to explain. My husband and I are very close, share everything, and think nothing of picking up the other person's phone and reading a few recent text messages, especially if we're seeing what's up with the other person's family or it's a mutual friend. We do not read each other's phone with the intent of seeing if the other person is cheating or lying. We just do it because we are nosy. I'm just trying to say the fact I checked his phone wasn't a trust issue. I've picked up my mom's phone and read a few texts to see what she's talking about with my aunt, for example. Or another example, my husband is on a big group text with like 20 people in his family. I've read through this just to see what's going on with everyone. I know we should have more in savings. We're working on it. I graduated college with a very expensive monthly student loan bill. I lived in New York City for the first few years after college, spent a ton on rent, making $50,000 to $60,000 a year, and was not able to save a lot of money in my early years. New York City is expensive. Then we moved across the country. That was at least $8,000 in moving expenses. I've had jobs in the past where I received a big annual bonus at the end of the year. A lot of this cash and savings from the past was used for our wedding and a down payment on our house. Then I switched jobs and haven't had these bonuses for a few years. I also went about 4 months being unemployed between jobs where we were down to one income. We did not save much during this time. In December, we both started new jobs making a lot more money. We also refinanced our mortgage, got rid of PMI on our house, and were able to significantly reduce our monthly mortgage bill by like $600. So yes, we're going to make $300K this year, but last year it wasn't nearly this much. My goal this year was to use all my extra income from my new job to save up for an emergency/rainy day fund. I will 100% be more involved in the finances going forward. This was dumb of me. I knew it was dumb and I did it anyway. My mom told me it was dumb and I didn't listen. I've always had access to our money and accounts. I just logged in today. I just didn't monitor it regularly. He did all the bills and paid taxes. I just worked and let the money flow to our savings account. I have a hands-off approach with money in that regard. I have a decent idea of how much money we make and spend and save on an annual basis. However, when it comes to monthly expenses, credit cards, etc., I let my husband handle that. I will be more involved moving forward. In the past in our relationship, we considered my husband the one who was good with money. I am more laissez-faire, and I was the one who has been less frugal in the past. Many of you fairly pointed out it was dumb to let my husband handle everything. He never cut me out of anything. My thought process was, my husband is very good with money, and I trust him completely to handle all of our finances. I'll be more involved going forward. My father-in-law is helping my sister-in-law with a down payment on our house. I knew this, however, I didn't know my husband was also thinking he would help her with this. Regarding the money for a one-bedroom New York City apartment, she's looking at a one-bedroom apartment somewhere out in Queens for like $350,000 to $400,000. She was probably going to get like $40,000 from her father for the down payment. I think my husband just wanted to pitch in and help her out a bit more. He did feel bad about this, but he was 100% honest with me after I confronted him. I think he wanted to step in like a caring big brother, saw his dad offering money, and he wanted to help her too. I think he made the decision to give her the money impulsively. I did not immediately say we can't give his sister the money. When I confronted him, he immediately asked me if I was still okay to give the money. I did think about it and decided while we have a bit of cash right now, we need that for emergencies and are financially not in a position to be giving away $10,000. Our lives are just beginning. We are going to have kids and their college expenses and need to retire someday. I asked him if we have to give her the money now, if it was a promise and she was counting on it. He said no, absolutely not, and his sister and father would understand if he said he couldn't give the money anymore. Also, I'm due for a bonus at the end of the year, and I told him maybe in January, when I find out what that amount is, we can consider helping her, but we don't know when that is going to be. Also, I did not grow up in poverty. I just grew up poorer than I am now. My mom, brother, and I grew up on my mother's teacher's salary. We always had food on the table, but money was tight, and my mom was, and is to this day, terrible with money. So I'm just scarred from that a bit, and really value the security I have today. Final edit. The first thing I did today was check our bank account. I logged in, no problem. He never cut me out of anything. I know I said he manages and controls the finances, but what I meant and should have said is that he pays the bills. I have open access to everything. All our money was there, nothing crazy happened. When I got home from work, I sat down with the husband over dinner. Told him we needed to talk through this and make sure we are on the same page. We agreed he was a moron and made new rules for why this can never happen again. Agreed we will discuss any purchase over $500, no exceptions. He listened and apologized and explained his side of the story. Maybe I'm an idiot, but it does add up. I don't think he is a nefarious liar. He has a big heart and wanted to help his sister. He was still wrong. He still messed up. But I can forgive this. Basically, yes, it was a red flag. I'll learn from this, but I don't think I need to hop off a sinking ship into a lifeboat just yet. I promised to be more active in the finances. I'll make sure he knows that I'm watching everything. He promised to make it easier for me by compiling all accounts into one place, etc. Am I the jerk for calling the police on someone who parked in my driveway? Last Saturday, our neighbors had a yard sale. There was a decent amount of people that stopped by, and they were fine parking in my neighbor's driveway. We live on a very busy street, so parking on the road is a nuisance as there is no shoulder and people tend to drive well over 35 miles per hour speed limit that is posted. To be clear, it is very obvious that this is our driveway on our property. We do not share an easement with the neighbors, so this person purposely pulled into our driveway because the neighbors was full from other people at our yard sale. The way he was parked completely blocked both of our cars in, so if we need to get out, we couldn't. About an hour into the sale, we noticed a car pull into our driveway. I asked my husband if he was expecting anyone, and he said that he wasn't, so he went outside to see what they wanted. He saw the driver, a passenger, and two kids get out of the car and walk over to the neighbor's yard sale. My husband called out to the driver of the car and told him he can't park there and to move his car. He told my husband that he had nowhere to park and the kids were with him and it was too dangerous to park on the street. My husband said he understood, but he needed to move the car out of our driveway. The man proceeded to argue with my husband until he finally told him to either move his car or we will call and have it towed. My husband came inside and asked me to call the non-emergency police line to see if someone could come out and ask the driver to move the car out of our driveway. An officer arrived within 10 minutes and my husband explained the situation to him. The other driver began ranting at the officer about not having a safe place to park, and the officer told him that it didn't matter, that he was on our property and he could either move the car or the officer would call to have him towed. The man started screaming at my husband and told him that if one of his kids got injured because he had to park in the road, he was going to sue us. My neighbors, the ones having the yard sale, came over and told us that we were jerks for making such a commotion over them being parked in our driveway. My husband explained that they were the ones having the yard sale, not us, and that he would have never allowed strangers to park in their driveway because it's just rude. Now my neighbors are bad-mouthing us to all of our other neighbors. Some agree that we were in the right, but the ones to the immediate right of us are now being cold to us and telling us that we are insensitive and have no sense of community. So, am I the jerk, or should I have let it go and let the man park in my driveway? ETA, people keep asking why we called the police. We called them because the driver was becoming increasingly hostile and swearing. He threatened to sue us. We would most likely have let him stay if he had just asked us first. The second he started cursing at my husband, he had to leave. We do not know him, did not know what he would do or was capable of, nor did we invite him. He was there for a neighbor's yard sale that had nothing to do with our property. Karen threatens to scratch my car because I stole her parking spot. This happened about an hour ago. In the city where I live, it's really hard to find parking where you're allowed to park for longer than 3 hours. The only places you can park longer is in public parking garages, but you really need to be there before 8 a.m. because it fills up fairly quickly. I was a little late this morning, so the garage was kind of packed already. I prefer to park on the ground floor because I don't have to walk as long. I looked around for a while and actually found a single spot on the ground floor, but there was a car standing with a turn signal on just by the spot, like on the way to pull into the parking spot, but the person just stood there and was on the phone not paying attention to me. I waited a few seconds, because I don't want to be rude, and snatched the spot in front of the person, but the lady in the car didn't notice me, so of course I took the spot. No reaction. Got out of the car, still no reaction. But just when I was about to leave, the lady in the car honked at me. which scared the crap out of me, and she rolled down her window. She didn't look like the typical Karen. She was in her late 30s and kind of good looking actually, until she started talking with her Karen voice. We've got the entitled lady and we've got me. Karen. Excuse me? Screaming at me. I looked around confused, but I didn't understand if she talked to me or someone else. Me. Me? Who else, moron? You're the only one here stealing other people's parking spots. Me. Excuse me? You know that these are public parking. There's no reserved parking spots. If it's occupied, then find another spot. But you saw that I was about to pull into that spot. Me. No, you were on your phone for a solid 30 seconds just standing there. But I was just answering a text, and I had my blinker on. Just move your car now. I need a spot on the ground floor. I have a hard time walking because I'm disabled. Me. If you're disabled, then why aren't you parking in a handicap spot? The two by the entrance are free. But I don't have a permit for that. But that's beyond the point. Now move. Me. If you don't have a permit, then you're probably not even disabled. That's none of your business. Why can't you just move the car? You're younger than me, so you would have an easier time walking from the second floor. Me. I don't have time for this. I'll be late for work. I don't care. Leave then. By the way, I know which car is yours. Would be kind of unfortunate if something happened to it. Yes, she actually said that out loud. Me. And I'll know which idiot did it now that you told me. Then I proceed to take up my phone and I walk closer and snapped a photo first of my car where I was in the parking spot, then I snapped a photo of Karen's car so you could see both the license plate and her face. This made her explode in rage and she got out of the car and started screaming at me that I assaulted her and that she was calling the police if I didn't delete the photo and move my car. I didn't actually answer her. My first thought was, when I saw her size, she was kind of big, was I can easily run away from her. So I just said, good luck with that. Bye, Karen. Then I started running out of the parking garage and Karen actually ran after me and she was a lot quicker than I expected. My office is really close to the parking garage. It's like 200 meters. So I ran for the door and quickly got out my key and opened the door, and I just about closed the door in her face. I waved goodbye and smiled and headed up to my office. That was some good morning exercise, I would say. This should be a sport. Instead of running from bulls, we would run from Karens. I hope that she doesn't scratch my car, but if she does, I have evidence that she actually was there at that time, and there's probably cameras in the parking garage too. Update. The lady apparently tried to get into the office after I closed the door in her face. The door is always locked, and we have a phone by the door that goes to the reception. But the receptionist will of course only let you in if you have an appointment with someone at the company and you have to provide a name and time of the appointment, otherwise you won't be let in. The receptionist told me at our coffee break that some crazy lady called on the door phone and demanded to be let in. The receptionist told her the same as everyone. What's your name? With who do you have an appointment and which time? Karen came up with some BS excuse that she wanted to talk to her son. She made up some name for her son even, but the receptionist simply answered, no one by that name works here. Are you sure you have the right address? She tried another excuse about how she saw a criminal enter the building. The receptionist said that she hadn't seen any suspicious people enter the office and that she should call the cops instead. I told her about the incident in the parking garage this morning and that it was probably the same lady, and we had a good laugh about it. There's one thing I still wonder about. There's 4 different companies in this building, so you have to pick which one when you make a call on the door phone, and the company I work at is at the bottom of the list. She can't know which company I work at, so I wonder if she called all the companies and hoped to find the correct one. Would you move your car if Karen demanded it or not? Please let us know. If you don't, I'll just scratch it. Don't try me, Mr. Reddit. Entitled Kid wants my custom knee brace. We've got Entitled Mom, we've got Entitled Kid, and me. Okay, so I walk with a cane and have an expensive hinged knee brace. It's a brag if you want to look it up for pricing. They range, but mine is well over $400. If I don't wear it, my knee buckles up backwards and I fall on my face. I also use a cane when I walk and have several other health issues. I was at Mayor walking around looking at toys last November for my kids for Christmas. I am very pregnant and my doctor warned me to avoid stress and that my baby will probably be a month early. So I'm taking it easy, walking slow, taking breaks and relaxing often. I get to the toy cars and I'm looking through them looking for ones my kid doesn't have for stocking stuffers when I feel something touch my leg. I look behind me and Entitled Kid looks up and smiles at me. I smile back and the following happens. Me. Hello, it's not polite to touch other people's things. Can you not touch my brace, please? Thank you. Entitled Kid.
But I want it. Give it to me.
Me. No, I can't walk without it. You can't have it. And it's not your size anyway. It's made for an adult.
I don't care. Give it to me or I'll tell my mommy.
Me. Okay, that's fine. You can tell your mom. You cannot have it, sweetheart. At this point, the kid wanders away, and I assume that when the kid says they wanted my knee brace, they'd get in trouble. I can remember wondering how that conversation would go for that kid and their parent. I start picking through the cars and find a couple my son doesn't have and put them in my cart and start looking at the track sets they have and check their pricing against Amazon's pricing. I'm scrolling through my phone when I can feel and hear the Velcro being pulled apart on my brace. I pull my leg up and turn around and see the kid sitting there. Me. Excuse me, I told you no. You cannot have or touch my brace.
Mom said I could just take it because you're faking.
Me. I'm not faking anything. You need to go back to your mom, now. Entitled Kid.
Mommy!
The kid is crying, shrieking, and causing a huge scene, screaming for their mother and grabbing at my brace, which is making me unbalanced. I can feel my heart rate going up, and I'm starting to worry about falling and hurting my baby. Entitled Mom. What's the problem here? Me. Your kid is asking for my brace. I tell them no, and they try to take it off of me. Well, just give it to them then. I don't see what the big deal is. You can buy another. Me. My insurance only covers new ones every 5 years. I can't get another one. If your son wants a knee brace, you need to tell him he can't have mine. Well, he can have yours. Take it off and give it to me. The entitled mom steps forward and bends over and starts trying to undo my brace. I kick her away and she falls down. It wasn't a hard kick since it was my bad side, but enough to know I mean business. Me. No! Help! Don't touch me! Entitled Mom. You kicked me! You kicked me! Someone call the police. I will have you arrested for this. Now a crowd is forming and I'm crying and my brace is half undone around my leg and sagging, giving zero support. I pull my cane out of the cart and use it to support myself while management is asking if I'm okay, and I'm nodding while entitled mom is shrieking still at everyone. They walk me to the shoe department to separate us, and I sit on a bench and calm down. The next thing I know, a cop is asking me for my brace I stole. I explained I didn't steal it, that it's mine, and that some woman and her kid were trying to steal it off my leg. The officer asks for proof it's mine, so I pull up recent photos of me getting it fitted and walking with it at the doctor's office, as well as my chart where I have the letter stored saying insurance would cover it completely. He asked me to take it off since she's claiming it's damaged so he can inspect it. I let him, and he informs me that there's a piece missing. I look at it, and sure enough, a piece is missing. I start to cry again and realize I've broken my brace and I won't get another one for 5 years. He asks if it was broken before. I said no, it must have broken when I kicked entitled mom off of me while she was trying to steal it. The officer excuses himself, and I'm sitting there with employees. After a while, he comes back and gives me a case number and informs me he's arresting the entitled mom for destruction of medical equipment and attacking a disabled person. I'm in shock, but he says he watched the security camera and knows I'm telling the truth and that she attacked me and I was defending myself. I ended up going into labor that night from the stress and had to stay on an IV drip for 3 days in the hospital to get it to stop. I go home and my insurance billed her for a new brace. She refused to pay until my friend used his letterhead at a lawyer's office to inform her if she didn't pay that he would be taking her to court for it. I had my baby early, but not because of this event, thank God. She's 10 months old now, October 2020, and my husband brought it up today and asked me to post it here. Make me look bad on the job? Well, we'll see about that. I worked at a clothing store in a mall for a year and a half. It was not fun. But I was thinking back to my time there recently, and I forgot this golden gem of pro revenge. So a new girl had been hired, as many people knew did in that job, and right away you could tell she thought she was hot crap. She was talking and acting like a manager, talking about how many hours she had, and worst of all, she wouldn't shut up about all the dudes that she was hooking up with, and how the money she got from them was the most important part. To put it lightly, she was a cold-hearted jerk who made everyone feel bad about their insignificant lives, as she put it. Here's where things go down. In our store, all the racks were milled steel bars and hooks, so really hard to break and really expensive. They could, however, be bent out of shape if enough heavy coats stay on them for long periods of time. Miss Jerk here thought it would be a good idea to impress the management by putting all the coats on the same rack using the milled steel bars instead of a circular rack that wouldn't warp. I protested, of course, as I had been there longer, but she said, "I get paid more than you, so do what I say." She got hired as a key holder out of the gate, so she made $1 more than I did per hour. I go along with it, put the heavy winter coats up on the milled steel, and go about my life. Well, 2 weeks later, the milled steel is of course warped, and when management saw this, they flipped. Cheapo store, any cost was bad to them. Anyways, she blames it on me, and I get written up for it. Now, I refused to sign, so they gave me less hours, which also cut my pay. Because she lied, I was now making 50% less than before and had a formal written complaint against me. To say I was ticked off wouldn't even start. So I devised a plan to get back at her. You see, the drywall on the center pillars had sustained water damage from an early melt earlier that year, making them extremely soft. However, they provide some of the largest coverage of shelf space in the entire store, meaning basically a good 20% of the shelf space couldn't be used. Now, the kicker is, Miss Jerk didn't know about this as she came in a week after it had happened, and to the naked eye, you wouldn't think that the pillar couldn't be used as there were banners on it to try and hide the yellowing. I may have suggested what a waste not being able to have product on those pillars was, and how if someone could come up with a nice display, it would bring in a lot of customers due to how people could see it from the mall main floor. We were just off the food court. Her eyes lit up. And here's the thing, I was taking a small break to a nice snowy lake cabin the next day, and the people she had working with her were the manager or the temps, who were not allowed to handle marketing and logistics, such as putting up shelves and racks on the wall due to their cost and the incident that got me wrote up. Now I knew she wouldn't want the managers to see it because she wanted all the glory from it. She wanted to show to our 3 stores in the mall that her store was the best while the managers weren't around. So she, being with a temp and them not being able to put up shelving, put the heavy winter clothing on milled steel racks attached to the soft drywall pillars. Within a week, the drywall on the pillars collapsed and ruined $500 worth of product. Now, she tried to shift the blame on me, but I was away for the whole week, so it could not have been me because obviously that couldn't happen if I'm in the forest hundreds of miles from civilization. So no dice there, and she promptly got charged with the repair, demoted to sales associate, and written up for what they finally realized was not just this, but the one they wanted me to sign. The repair was $2,500 plus the $500 stock that got destroyed when 40 pounds of drywall came crushing down on it. But I wasn't done yet. You see, our manager in our store specifically was pretty chill, and she's still a personal friend to me. She had a group chat so we could talk off hours and keep up to date. Now, as I mentioned before, she wouldn't shut up about all the men that she was playing and how the only thing that mattered was the money. And boy, oh boy, did she use the group chat to say a lot of this. Sometimes one of these dudes would come around and take her for lunch. Let's just say, when she was in the back for a little while finishing something up, that I let them see the text channel, if they promised not to let her know I told them. So often they'd go on their lunch date, and after 1 or 2 days, she'd be down a man. Finally, this boiled over when one of them took her phone, saw how many guys she had been using for money, and messaged all of them about how much of a lying cheat she was. After 2 months, her fountain of man money dried up, and now demoted to a sales associate, she didn't have the money to spend on all her lavish nights out or designer clothing. She eventually moved up to another store for more hours and stole money from the till, causing her to get fired. A fitting end to a backstabbing ice queen, I think. I eventually left that job after half a year later to pursue my current job. Edit to clear things up. To those saying that charging an employee for repairs is illegal, 100%. However, she decided to instead take a pay cut until it was paid back and keep her job rather than be fired. Minimum wage here is $15 an hour, so she took the cut down to approximately $12 in order to pay it back. Also, this company is super sketchy and will do anything not to pay for their mistakes, even going as far as to leave a hole in the roof, water damage, there for 10 months before fixing it, making it so during spring nothing could be put there. Have you ever had a coworker you just couldn't stand? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Does a co-host that I can't stand count?
Nitpick the dress code? I can do that too. Our junior high dress code was a pain. Most teachers didn't care so long as kids weren't distracting. The principal of the junior high, however, insisted on enforcing every single rule. A friend of mine wore a long-sleeve shirt under a tank top. The principal insisted she couldn't wear the tank top because tank tops were against the dress code. But she couldn't take off the tank top because her shirt was slightly see-through, another violation. Instead of allowing her to simply wear the tank top over her long sleeve shirt, she sent her home. I decided this wouldn't stand. I studied every rule in the dress code to prove how stupid it was. I started off small and worked my way up. No open-toed sandals. This one was easy. I wore open-toed high heels. Nothing in the rules against high heels, and the open-toed rule only applied to sandals the way it was written. Shirts must be tucked into pants. Belts must be worn through belt loops. Knocked out too here by wearing a skirt. Skirts, or at least the one I wore, had no belt loops and wasn't considered pants, so I was not required to tuck in anything or wear a stupid belt. Backpacks must be plain colored with no pins or excessive accessories. I picked up a briefcase from a resale shop and slapped it with every sticker I could find. Any random logo or inspirational sticker I had laying around got slapped on it. Technically, a briefcase isn't a backpack. No costumes allowed. I verified this. My school considered a costume to be anything only worn for a certain period of time or for a certain reason. If you wore it all day long, it was an outfit, not a costume. I took advantage of this one badly. Once a week, I dressed up as a lawyer, a clown, a hippie, a Shakespearean actor, a superhero, a cameraman, etc. Complete, of course, with as many accessories as I could handle, so long as I never took them off. This made gym class interesting. They weren't considered part of a costume. I ended up letting kids pick out what I would dress as each week. No crazy hairstyle. Kept my hair natural colors, and kept the style as something that was at least popular at one point. Beehive took forever, but was the most satisfying. Bonus points if I could find pictures of adults who were still wearing their hair like that currently. Shirts are not allowed to have logos or print, only patterns and consistent designs. Consistent designs was my loophole here. No print? Fine, but consistent print made specifically to look like a design? At this point, the principal was going mad and she didn't let this one slide. She insisted I change, which I expected. Gym shorts must reach students' knees, or be at least as long as their fingertips. Guess whose fingertips reach about 3 inches below their waist? I started wearing the short shorts, but my shorts were still longer than my fingers. I even offered to change back into my other clothes. At this point in the year, we were almost done with school. Other kids were following my lead and were driving the principal mad. I decided to kick it up a bit further. I attacked what should have been the most basic rule. No sunglasses. Rose-colored glasses aren't considered sunglasses because you can easily see through them. Still, the principal jerked them off my face and insisted I wouldn't get them back until the end of the day. No tank tops. I wore a dress with spaghetti straps. It wasn't a shirt, so I wasn't breaking a rule. Belts must be plain with no dangerous materials. Plain it must be, so plain I went. I wore a shoestring as a belt. I wore a braided yarn string as a belt. I even wore a spandex band sewn to my pants as a belt. No Crocs. Crocs are not the only rubber shoe, my friends. I found every off-brand Croc I could get a hold of. Finally, at the end of the year, I wore one of my most outrageous outfits. I wore a dress, think bathing suit cover-up, over leggings and a shirt that barely classified as a t-shirt. I wore shoes with a 4-inch cork heel. I had on fake glasses, no lenses, and a 4-inch wide headband. I wore bangles up to my elbows and anklets on each foot. I had a box to carry my books in that was decorated with blinking battery-powered fairy lights. I walked right up to the principal and gave her a smile. Kids paused to see what would happen. I waited to see what she would say. We had had this conversation all year. She would point out the rule I broke, and I would prove how I didn't. She sighed. Principal: "Fine, but if even one teacher says you're distracting to the class, you change clothes." We shook on it. Only thing I had to ditch was part of the bangles. They kept clanging while I wrote. In the end, I ended up getting the dress code rewritten and amended, and the principal implemented a new procedure where dress code violations were not sent home. They were noted, and students had to wear a piece of duct tape indicating the specific violation. If you forgot a belt, you put a piece of tape on a belt loop. Kids only started to get in trouble after 3 dress code violations in the same week. Since she lightened up on the dress code and how harshly it was punished, she stopped having trouble with kids breaking it all the time. It worked out for everyone. Edit, because everyone keeps asking for photos. I'm going to look, but this was several years ago. I'm done with college now. And besides the fact we didn't take a lot of photos because this wasn't exactly an odd thing for me to do. We've also had several hurricanes and floods that ruined most of my childhood evidence. If photos proved my life, I was born at 18. Have you ever had a dress code that you didn't agree with? If so, what was wrong with it? Please let us know. As long as I can wear my Live, Laugh, Love shirts, I'm good. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend any celebrations in my family because of something that happened when I was a teenager? My elder sister had terrible depression while growing up. We were polar opposites. She was very introverted and struggling, while I was an extrovert and had a ton of friends and had it easy in high school. After a bad spiral, my sister broke down and cried to my mom about how easy I had it and that she loathed herself more because of me. My parents were very worried that she was going to do something drastic, and their solution was to have me stop hanging out with my friends. Outside school, I wasn't allowed to hang out with my friends. I would text/call them, but I couldn't meet them. My elder sister loved this, and she kept saying how me not rubbing her face and the fact I am better than her is helping her mental health immensely. So during the ages of 14 to 18, I wasn't allowed to have friends outside school. During my birthdays, my mom used to not celebrate because she felt me having too much fun would affect my sister. She would make me skip school on my birthday so that I wouldn't have a secret celebration, and anything that's a gift is strictly forbidden. Obviously, I broke the stupid rule and had a ton of friends, many of whom I'm still in contact with. During that time, I began to hate my mother and my sister. My dad tried to cheer me up, but he never said anything in my defense. I stopped celebrating anything with them: birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, etc. Whenever they asked me about it or accused me of not bothering, I would just say that I didn't get anything for them because I didn't want to upset my elder sister. I got a full ride to college and didn't speak to any of them after that. 5 years later, my dad fell sick, and I responded when they reached out. I started speaking to my mom and dad again. I refused to talk to my elder sister. She's still miserable and bitter and very, very alone, and I would like to be as far away from her as possible. I have still not celebrated anything with them. A few months ago, my parents had their anniversary, and I didn't wish them or get them a gift. They asked me if I wanted to come for a small dinner with close friends and family, and I just replied, I don't want to upset anyone by celebrating something. My mom was really mad. She told me that I either need to forgive them or just go no contact again. She said that there's no point in me saying that I'm willing to forgive them and then making snide remarks or throwing things back in her face. I listened to her and then decided to go no contact again. My parents aren't respecting my decision and are accusing me of being stuck in the past. This all happened a few months ago, and I'm merely curious to what Reddit thinks. Am I the jerk? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you forgive them or not? Please let us know. I don't think I could, to be honest. They were wrong for what they did. Go tell the principal what I did? All right, but you really might want to write a note next time. Background. My science teacher in 9th grade hated me. I'm pretty sure it started because we had a difference in opinion and it just escalated. Basically, my entire year with her was nothing but malicious compliance. Story. We arrive in class, sit down, and get our pens out. The teacher, Mrs. Science for purposes of our story, hands out a worksheet. I glance down and I realize I know all the answers, so I go ahead and fill it out. It only takes me a minute or so. I flip it over when I'm done and focus on what Mrs. Science is saying. It dawns on me that she's now going over the chapter that the worksheet covered. I didn't want to interrupt the class, and I also didn't want to listen to her teach what I already knew. So I grabbed a library book from my bag and start to read quietly at my desk. 10 minutes later, I hear Mrs. Science call my name. I look up, expecting to have her ask me a question about what she was teaching. Mrs. Science. Why are you reading a book? Me. I already know this material. What do you mean? Me. You're going over the chapter for the worksheet. I already know this and I finished it already. Miss Science. What do you mean you finished the worksheet? I didn't tell you to start that yet. Me. Oh, I'm sorry. Teacher. Fine. Bring it up here. I walked my worksheet to the front. Mrs. Science put it on the projector and graded it in front of the class. I got a 100 on it. The class immediately started copying my answers. Mrs. Science got really mad about that. Go to the principal right now. Me. Are you going to give me a note? No. Just go and tell her what you did. Me. All right. I left and did just that. I told the very busy principal I did my work and got a 100, and my teacher sent me to see her. She immediately sent me back, and Mrs. Science got even more mad that I came back so quickly. She then escorted me down to the principal. Of course, the principal verified that I 1. Did my worksheet, 2. Got a 100, and 3. Was reading quietly before telling Mrs. Science to leave her alone. Of course, that didn't sit well with Mrs. Science, but that ends the malicious compliance portion of this story. If you want to hear more, let me know in the comments. Edit. I've been asked to share the fallout. My bad. Ultimate fallout was the teacher being ever so grateful I left her class. Throw a party the last week of class grateful. I never got in trouble and she continued working at the school. Last I heard, she was still working there. Although I did hear she was much more lenient about kids reading in class after that. One of the best responses to a customer complaint I have ever seen. Some background. A customer placed a $500 deposit using their credit card to start the process on an order. The customer canceled the order a few days later and was well within the cooling down period. The order was canceled and the money was refunded to the card. This all happened within the same week back in December of 2019. The salesperson in question is one of our most successful salespeople and last year almost made $200,000 in total compensation. Truth be told, until recently, no one had paid any attention to this particular transaction. The sales manager at the start of October sent out a marketing email to all his past customers sharing some news in an attempt to generate some business. The customer from December of 2019 said he didn't want to do business with him, requested to be removed from the mailing list. First time he's requested this to our knowledge, which we did comply with, and accused the salesperson of stealing his $500. The salesperson checked the order, ensured the money was refunded as it should have been, even going out of his way to check with accounting, who did confirm the refund was issued with no serious delay or issue. The salesperson advised the customer of this, to which the customer accused the salesperson of stealing his $500. The salesperson provided the customer with his manager's contact details and told the customer if he feels that strongly that he stole from him, he should report him. The customer filed a complaint with us. We investigated the complaint. We determined that indeed everything had been done by the book and that the credit card used was actually a card in the customer's name. Basically, no funny business took place. We, however, did invite the customer to provide bank statements if he feels like we didn't refund the money, and if we can't see the refund, we will send him a $500 check. Generally, when we do this, the customer goes back, sees that we did indeed refund the money, but they didn't notice it. The customer rejected our response and demanded he be compensated and threatened legal action, over $500. It was escalated to our regional VP, who reviewed the details and came to the same conclusion, to which the VP wrote this email. Dear customer, it has come to my attention that you have accused person X of stealing $500 from you. You used your own credit card to place the $500 deposit and canceled within the grace period, which means you received a full refund. We have checked our accounting and everything appears to suggest that this is exactly what happened. We have invited you to provide evidence if you disagree with this statement and even went so far as to say if you can provide that the money was never returned to you, we would mail you a check in the amount of $500. You have failed to provide any evidence supporting your claims. Also, Mr. Salesperson is one of the most successful sales professionals in our organization and has over a 15-year track record of proven success. Mr. Salesperson has one of the highest customer satisfaction ratings in our organization by a substantial margin. In addition to it being impossible for our salesperson to steal customer deposits, our system simply does not allow for that. The fact that you have accused him of stealing your deposit with no evidence to back up your claim is disturbing. In response to this, you have decided to threaten us with a lawsuit. I've spoken to our lawyers, and they have advised me if you wish to pursue legal action, you should have your attorney contact them. The contact details are below. Furthermore, I have made the decision to blacklist you from ever being a customer of ours again. Please note, any responses to this email will be forwarded to our attorney. I wish you all the best. I translated the email. It wasn't written in English, but I printed out the email and showed it to our salesperson and told him to block the customer's email. Karma with extra spice. Bit of background. I'm a full-time student right now, but previously I was managing a clinic which had two separate businesses running out of the same space. I own shares in one of these businesses with who I will call MD because he's a medical doctor. I ran around the office all the time doing my jobs it took to be a medical office assistant and manager, plus helping with my other related business operating out of the same space, which had two nurses working out of one office. Different salespeople and company reps come through all the time, and I didn't feel the need to get involved with them unless I absolutely had to, because I was ulcer-inducing busy. There was one lady, we will call her Karen, who wanted to open a particular business, which I will not identify because it would make the story too identifiable, in the space next door. She made a point of introducing herself to the nurses and MD, but to the administrative staff and me, she was really snarky. She spoke in a very condescending voice to anyone but the doctors and nurses, and also did it with a big phony smile and slow words, which made it worse. I remember she would always say to the receptionist with this super sickly sweet but patronizing tone, "You don't remember who I am, do you?" I mostly noticed in passing while running around getting work done. She had asked MD about potentially joining our building together. It was one building in which we had half and she wanted to rent the other half, which was separated by a locked steel door and had entrances from the street for both, so that it would be almost a guarantee that our patients would go to her business. We discussed and immediately agreed that it was totally unethical for us to push patients towards any particular business. We can't control who rented the space unless it was undesirable, but we certainly weren't going to recommend a business we didn't have experience with or, heaven forbid, influence patient autonomy in any way. He wanted me to help him tell her this, as he's a non-confrontational sort, and she kept coming back to talk to him and he wanted backup. I figured it was also a good reason to have lunch across the street, because sometimes you need to get the heck out of the office. So I made reservations. Everyone else had gone to lunch, so I was sitting behind the front desk just after 12 p.m. shuffling papers, waiting for Karen to come in for what she thought was a lunch date with MD. He was finishing up some things in his closed office. Karen, in a voice dripping with condescension. "You don't remember who I am, do you? I'm here to have a business meeting with the doctor." Me, pretty upset, but wanting to drag this out because the comeuppance would be sweeter. "Yup, MD knows you're coming, and there are reservations across the street for 12:15. He's just finishing up something in his office that's pretty important and will be out in another 5. Karen, exactly like you would talk to a small child and showing me the time on her phone. "You need to tell him I am here then, so we can go to the restaurant. It's 12:03 now." Me, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. Karen, very offended by what she thinks is an inferior being uppity. "Well then, I will just phone him myself." I basically just ignored her while she tried to phone his cell, which he didn't answer. He came out 5 minutes later, and Karen swept up to him and gestured at me. "This person didn't tell you I was here, but I guess now I can tell you," and then laughed like she said something funny. Indy, coldly angry and visibly offended. "I wouldn't dream of making a decision without the advice of my business partner. I'm hungry, so let's just go and get this over with." Her facial expression was pretty satisfying when I led us all across the street for an amazing lunch. I almost felt sorry for her by how hard she sucked up to me through all of it. Karen wanted me to turn off my TV when her family walks by my apartment because her kid is grounded. I just moved into an apartment last week. So far, everyone I have met in passing has been nice. No one has been too loud at unreasonable hours, arguing with each other, stealing parking spaces, and other typical shared space craziness. Yet, at least, only been here a week. I did, however, encounter a Mama Karen and her 6-year-old son. My apartment is one of those half-in-the-ground units with 2 other floors on top. As such, the top of my patio wall is level to the walking path. If I have my blinds open, you can easily see into my living room and kitchen. This honestly doesn't bother me. The weather is finally really nice here, so after work yesterday, I opened my patio sliding door and blinds to let the cooler air in while playing some Minecraft. After a while, I could hear a couple of women talking outside a few units down. Just general chit-chat. I also heard a smaller kid running around, messing with the gravel along the pathways, and generally just being a bored kid while mommy talked with her friend. Really no big deal at all. Then it happened. I heard one of the women called for the kid. "Jason? Jason! Jason, get over here! Jason!" Fake name for protection. I looked up to see the kid standing on the path next to my unit transfixed on the TV. Uh-oh. He didn't answer quick enough. Mama Karen came stomping over to him and forced him to look at her while she yelled in his face about answering her and not watching TV, especially someone else's. I thought the way she was acting was overkill, but let it be. He's not my kid, and I'm not a parent at all. Just to my fur babies, 2 cats. I did pay attention for in case things got worse to jump in, but didn't stare. I only looked over when she called out to me to apologize for her son. Note, not for her behavior. I said it was fine. Mama Karen took him back over to her friend and they continued talking. Eventually, the kid started playing around near them again. Soon, he was back over at my patio, looking in, watching me play. Soon after that, I hear Mama Karen yell at him again. This time, he flinched. Hard. It broke my heart to see the effects of this in action, as he was just frozen staring at her. This time, I jumped up and went to my patio door. She was already at him by then and yelling at him again. I tried to interject to say I truly didn't mind that he was watching me play. This is where the Karen aspect comes in. She turned to me, sickly sweet, the demon gone for the moment, and kindly explained that dear Jason was grounded and not allowed to even look at a TV. I said, "Bummer, dude," to him in sympathy. She didn't like that I addressed him and not her. I also didn't think she liked that I showed him sympathy instead of instantly taking her side, even though I had no idea why he was punished in the first place. I wouldn't doubt if it was some silly reason on her part, or her being bothered by normal kid behaviors. She then asked me something that blew my mind. Can you please shut off your TV when we're out here? We are usually out here for some outside time for about an hour a day. Or you can just shut your window and blinds. Not gonna lie, the people pleaser I have been raised to be almost said, "Oh, sure, no problem," and was going to do it. Then I stopped myself thinking, what? Telling me what to do in my house? I'm trying to have a shinier spine. I tell her no, I won't. Oh boy, that sure as heck is her trigger word. I thought she was going to reach in and jerk me around and yell at me like I was her kid. The look was so instantly upset. She again explained the situation, fully expecting me to cooperate this time. She laid out her case. She made the demand again. Not a faux question this time. I again told her no. I came home to relax, and this is how I do it. She asked me if I have kids. Uh-oh, I'm solidly kid-free, and according to the laws of parenting, my thoughts and opinions are completely and instantly invalid unless I pop out at least one entire, mostly full-term kid. I told her no, and she smirked. I thought so. I was ready for a lecture on how to handle kids properly or something, but she just jerked her son away back towards the other woman, who I assume was still there. She said something as she went, but I didn't really hear it, so I don't know if it was to me, her son, or her friend, maybe even grumbling to herself. I hadn't seen those two before yesterday, but apparently they're out there for at least 1 hour daily around that time. There's a pool, a few barbecue pits, and a grassy area outside my unit and between the surrounding units and buildings. I get to see all the good doggos walk by, and it makes my day. I really hope she doesn't cause issues for me. I just want to live there and not be bothered. I'm not going to help her parent her kid. No one else in the whole world should be expected to except her. I just don't get how she thinks she can ask a total stranger to turn off the TV in their home because she's punishing her kid in hers. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. I'm proud of myself for standing my ground, as brief as the encounter was. I worry for the kid though. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have closed the blinds or not? Please let us know. I would have opened them even more and turned it up louder, to be honest. Karen is furious at me because she rear-ended my car. So today I was stopped at a red light, totally stationary, not moving a bit, not even pumping my brakes to inch up, nothing to imply movement. Then enters Karen. Karen slams on the back of my car doing about 50. The initial shock wears off, but I'm still well into a panic attack because I do not like cars because of past experiences, and I find my phone and call 911. I step out of my car and go around the back to see what I'm working with. Then Karen gets out of her car. I'm expecting her to say she's sorry, ask if I'm alright, or even just an, "Oh my god," or "Oh crap." Nope, she greets me with, "You didn't call the police already, did you?" I tell her that's who I'm on the phone with. She says, "No, don't do that." I'm just like, yeah, okay, and go back to speaking to the dispatcher. They had asked the severity of the accident. I begin explaining to them what I'm seeing, which is basically a big jumble of plastics and hunks and chunks, but I honestly don't know what's from where, and that the entire logo from her car is sitting on the ledge thingy of my bumper. Karen apparently was upset that I was not upset about how much trouble she had gotten herself into. She starts screaming at me, "Look at my car! My car is worse! Look at how bad my car is!" I simply said, "Ma'am, you hit me." She keeps on screaming, so I go back to sit in my car. By the time the cops get there, my nose is bleeding, my chest hurts, and my head is pounding. They call out an ambulance because they think I'm injured, but in actuality, I just have chronic migraines and chronic nosebleeds, and having a panic attack will cause one. So the EMTs are checking me out, and I'm trying to explain that all the blood happened after the accident due to me panicking, and I'm fine, I'm just sore and panicking, but they're concerned because my blood pressure is really high. As I'm speaking with the EMTs, I hear Karen complaining about how I don't need medical help. I'm fine, she didn't even hit me that hard, etc. And the cops trying to explain to her that they called an EMT because my nose was bleeding and that they weren't sure if I'd hit my head. She didn't say anything else, at least not that I could hear after that. Thankfully, my car is built like a brick, so it could probably be repaired with a plunger and a Sharpie. It's literally got like 3 dents. Her whole front bumper was destroyed. It was gone. After I got home, I got the petty idea that I should have just taken her whole bumper home, just shoved it in my trunk, since she wanted to be a jerk. Would you have called the police in this situation? Or would you have tried to just work things out with Karen? Please let us know. Always report accidents to the police. Never trust anyone who tells you otherwise. Karen decides that she and her son are more important than the rules of competitive chess. Back in the late summer of 2019, I was invited to work as an assistant tournament director at a small annual chess tournament which was held entirely for charity. I had played in the tournament in 2017 and 2018, but without many high-rated players intending to play, I decided to make my donation to the cause and help run the event instead given that option. This was a junior tournament, which meant every player was a kid or a teenager. I was 16 at the time, but the rest of the tournament staff were all adults. I also had some experience as an assistant tournament director at a local club, and the organizers did the exact thing which causes way too many problems in any competitive chess. They decided to allow spectators in the tournament hall. Anyone who knows anything about competitive chess would tell you that talking between two players is a big no-no and that any chatting between players and spectators is a cardinal sin. I've seen spectators be thrown out for quietly murmuring among themselves, as they should be. Chess is a silent game, and spectators have no right to violate the rules which the players must abide by. The tournament was split into two sections, the advanced section and the beginner section based on rating. Every chess player has a rating based on their performances. The first time I took any notice of the Karen involved in this story is when she was registering her son to the tournament. When she was informed that his rating suggested that he would be best fit to play in the beginner section, chess tournaments usually allow you to play sections above your rating but not below your rating, she almost threw a fit. "My son is not some novice. He will play in the advanced section." She then turned away and grumbled something about how rude the suggestion was. The tournament director was maybe one of the most helpful and polite people who I've ever met in the chess world, a true inspiration by the way. So Karen's son was signed up for the advanced section. The director was much more experienced than I was, and while the expectation was that players in the advanced section would be very aware of the rules, such an expectation was not held for the beginner section, which for that reason would mean directing the beginner section would be much more of a challenge. With each section in 1 or 2 rooms and 2 tournament directors, I was given the advanced room, and Karen with it. I am a huge stickler for rules in chess, so I was watching the games and the spectators like a hawk. It had already been made very clear that I had the authority to settle any disputes and deal penalties as was necessary. Warning, loss of clock time, or forfeiture in extreme cases. Ejection of players I would have to consult the chief tournament director for. So round 1 started, and I'm watching the games. Karen's son, an advanced player, started the game by moving with 2 hands. This is a big no-no. You must move and press your clock with the same hand. So I paused his clock, declared the foul, issued a warning, and then let the game continue. Karen was almost already snarling from the spectator seating across the room. Literally, 1 move later, I have to deduct 5 minutes from the son's total 30 for doing that same thing I warned him about 1 move before. Then again, this time for 10 minutes, after about 2 minutes. If he did it again, now with 15 of his 30 minutes deducted, he would be forfeited. I made that very clear, and he finally got the hint. Somehow, Karen managed to hold her tongue this long when she starts talking to her son in the middle of the game in another language. This is wrong for her to do on so many levels. Even if she was speaking English and I was able to understand whether or not what she was saying was innocent or not, it would be wrong. Her talking at all is wrong. I had to assume the worst, not knowing what she had said, and went up to her. "Ma'am, you can't speak to your son during the game. That's against the rules. Realistically, he could get in trouble for that. This is your warning. If you talk to him again, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the tournament hall. I don't want to punish your son for your actions." "I was just telling him to wipe his nose. What is your deal?" "Ma'am, that's not acceptable to do during a rated chess game. You can tell him after the game." "You know, it really feels like you're targeting my son." "I haven't spotted improper play from any other players. The exact same action will be taken if I do." "There is no way my son is playing improperly." "I'm not going to argue with you about it right now. There are 8 games in this section, and I need to focus on all of them." "Okay then," she said smugly. Another minute later, Karen starts talking to her son again, and I go back to her. "I told you before, you're not allowed to be talking to your son during the game." "Okay, and?" "Please make your way out of the tournament room now. There are snacks and drinks just outside, and your son will update you on the result of his match when he finishes it." "What?" "Please leave the tournament room." "You have no authority to tell me to do that." "Then go and speak to the chief tournament director of the organizer." "Okay, we'll see what they think about your ethics." I just go back to what I'm doing. I had already been good friends with the chief tournament director for several years and had worked with him before. I knew this Karen thought, "Oh, it's my word against a teenager," and that she was going to get her way. But really, it was her word against mine, and my word was very well trusted for good reasons. None of us had seen Karen before this tournament that I could think of, and she already hadn't been one for first impressions. Karen did not return to the tournament room. Speaking of chess, have you ever played chess? Or how about checkers? Please let us know. I prefer Candyland, to be honest. Am I the jerk for getting a teacher fired over my son's head tattoo? My son, who's just turned 16, has had alopecia since he was young. For those of you who don't know, his hair falls out. It can progress with severe stress, and since elementary school, has been bullied mercilessly for it. The only real treatment was these injections into his scalp, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, are super painful. It was getting to the point that he'd become anxious closer to the doctor's visits, so I started looking at different options. I came across micropigmentation and suggested it to my son. He agreed that this seemed like the best option, and so for his birthday, I managed to get an appointment to set up under his doctor's recommendation, which made it totally legal. We drove 2 hours out of our way and spent the weekend in a larger city to get this done, since our town is fairly small. I don't know how to describe it. Even if it's buzzed, this stuff looks so real, and his confidence is just through the roof. He's no longer hiding under hats. He feels so confident with his new hair, and it's just really great to see. I'm honestly so glad that we made the decision, because now we can just move on from all of this. It's a huge weight lifted off of his shoulders every day. His school, however, thinks otherwise. He goes to a pretty strict Catholic school. Admittedly, I should have probably asked first, but I had flipped through the guidebook and saw nothing about tattoos in their policy. However, I got an angry email on Monday evening from a substitute teacher. She overheard my son explaining his procedure and felt compelled to tell me how this mutilation is illegal and unacceptable. I tried to explain, but she refused and continued to tear into me and him over this, going so far as to call me an irresponsible father for allowing my son to get a head tattoo. She called him a bad example and said that in no way is this acceptable under school rules. Well, here's where I may be the jerk. That admittedly upset me a lot, so I contacted not just the principal, but also a friend of mine who's on the board and the head of school, and forwarded them the conversation with highlights along with my own very strongly worded letter and other emails documenting the times that my son experienced bullying at that school, with minimum, if any, repercussion to those involved. I'll admit I was angry, but I threatened to sue them for discrimination. Needless to say, this prompted a lot. Apparently, the board is panicked about this, and the sub was fired. Word has gotten around due to the gravity of it all, and a few parents have called me the jerk, saying that I took the threats too far, as this substitute was not a normal part of the school, and I shouldn't have taken such an aggressive approach. Am I the jerk for getting this lady fired over this, and also for causing such a stir? ETA for clarification. They did not tell me, "we fired her." It was a much wordier way of putting it, along the lines of, "Well, I can't really say what sort of action the school will be taking on this matter, but I can assure you that you will not encounter her again." That information was relayed to me over the phone, so I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something like that. This is extra hard because she had taught some of the parents of kids who go there now, and had since retired and become a sub. She was known for calling parents up at night when students were out of line, and it wasn't my first encounter with her. The previous ones were borderline. Son came to class with a hood or hat on, so those I'd say she was more or less valid with, but this was way different. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I never expected it. I read through the comments, still have about 300 to go, but cannot reply to them all. I just want to thank you all, especially those with alopecia, for your kind words and shared stories. I wanted to add some points here to answer some questions. Mother is, and will always be, in the picture. She's from New Zealand, and last February went to visit. Lockdown happened, and then some family matters, which have caused her to stay there for the foreseeable future. We're hoping she will be back this spring, but it's still tentative. She has my back on this, but at the moment, we've decided that the healthiest thing to do is for me to be the parent with a focus on our son while she focuses on caring and advocating for her nieces, who will most likely be joining our family. She was aware of all of this, but we've agreed for a while now that it's my son's decision on his treatment. Alopecia doesn't affect you other than the hair falling out. I wouldn't consider my son disabled, especially because I know many families who have it much worse with kids who have conditions. That being said, it's definitely devastating to a kid, even if they are healthy. For those asking me more about the micropigmentation, my son will need another 1 to 2 more. We worried about his big patches, so he's still got some more to go, but we will just be doing his whole head. We've decided against the eyebrows for now because we don't know how well they can really be replicated. He will be done by the end of December due to the school calendar. I'm aware micropigmentation isn't a tattoo. We just call it a tattoo because it's easier and fun to joke about. We're looking for him to switch schools. The parents who told me I was out of line are the ones who had the sub as their English teacher back in the day. They've said that's just how she is, and they still see her as their teacher. It's a really unhealthy dynamic, yes, but it exists. Please do not waste your money on me with the rewards. This is a throwaway. Finally, if you're going to tell me I'm the jerk and send me hate, just do it here. Stop being a coward. This is like 2 in 1,000, but come on, do you have nothing better to do? I don't care if you don't work here. It's still bad customer service. I was washing my dog at a local pet store. They have public dog baths there with tons of signs about cost of using them. I was rinsing my dog off when I heard someone ask an employee, "Do you guys trim dog nails here?" I kept rinsing because I don't work there and assumed they were talking to an employee. I also couldn't see them because the dog bath is somewhat tucked behind some shelves. "Excuse me," I heard someone say in an annoying voice. I still didn't look up. I don't work there. From now on, we've got the annoying customer, a graying man with a pot belly and a deep voice. I heard the dog wash gate open, so I glanced over my shoulder. There's multiple ones to use there. I saw someone staring at me with their hands up. Customer pulled down their mask and strongly said, "Excuse me, do you trim nails here?" Me. "Oh, I don't think they do, but I don't work here. You'll have to ask someone who does." "But I just asked you. Why would I ask someone else?" Me. "Because I don't work here?" Customer. "If you don't work here, then why are you washing someone's dog?" Me. "I'm washing my own dog. This is a public dog bath." I pointed at the sign that read, "Dog bath, $10 per use." "So, you don't trim nails here? You just wash dogs? How much would it be if I brought 2 dogs in?" Me. "Dude, I don't work here. I just told you that 3 times. Go ask someone else." "I don't care if you don't work here. That's still bad customer service." I already have a short temper with stupid people, but I was getting more than annoyed by this customer, especially since he kept getting closer and closer in a gated bathing area, and my dog was starting to get agitated by him. Me. "I don't work here, you idiot. I told you over and over. Buzz off." My dog started growling, which he only does because of the excitement. He's not aggressive. Customer stormed off, slamming the gate and knocking over some dog treats. I could hear him from the other side of the store yelling at the cashier. "I want his name now. I want him fired." Cashier. "I'm sorry, sir. Who are you talking about?" "The employee at the dog wash." Cashier looks in my direction. "I'm the only employee here. That man washing his dog is a customer. Is there something I can do for you?" "Yes. Get your manager on the phone." Cashier. "But that man is not an employee. I'm actually the only employee here today." "I don't care." Cashier was silent for a few seconds and said, "I just told you he doesn't work here. I'm not calling the manager, but I am going to ask you to leave." Customer. "I'm not leaving until you call your manager." Cashier. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." "Forget you. I'm writing a review. This is terrible customer service." Customer stormed out. I've never in my life been confused as an employee anywhere, especially at this pet store. They wear blue shirts. I was wearing a black hoodie. After he was yelling at the cashier, I couldn't tell if he was all there in the head. Either way, I don't work there. Am I the jerk for asking my husband not to bring his friend around? I'm 43, female, and my husband, who's 45, has a friend, Todd, who's 39, that he's been hanging out with since we moved to our new state for work 5 years ago. When we first moved here, I struggled to find a new job. Todd would make passive-aggressive comments about how nice it must be to have someone support me. When I told my husband about it, he told me that Todd was joking and didn't mean it. I told him that it offended me and that I didn't find it funny, and he told me that I was taking it out of context. Since then, Todd has made more offensive comments. Last month, when I brought my husband a coffee and some food to his work, he was working overtime and he was tired and hungry. Todd saw me in the parking lot and remarked about how nice it must be to have a wife that brings coffee and food on command. I told him that I was not a dog and do not talk to me like that. The next day, when he saw my husband, he told him about the conversation we had in the parking lot and said that I was rude to him for no reason. So I told my husband what he said, and I told him that I will not be spoken to like that. My husband told me that I need to relax and that he didn't mean to be rude. Last week was the last straw. I replaced my phone after 7 years of having it. I had been saving money for 6 months to pay straight cash for the new phone. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had ordered it for me as a surprise. I was so excited and happy to finally have a phone that worked right. The night that I got it, we went out to dinner and ran into Todd while we were waiting for a table. Apparently, he knew that my husband was getting me a new phone and even remarked how spoiled I was and how hard my husband works for me to just spend his money. I saw red. I told him that first of all, I didn't spend his money, he did. That I have a job and I'm more than capable of buying my own phone, and that he was a petty, jealous jerk who was angry because he can't find a girlfriend who will put up with his crap, so he takes it out on me because I'm the only woman who will speak to him. We ended up just going home, and my husband gave me the silent treatment the whole ride home. As soon as we walked into the door, he told me that I embarrassed him. I told him that I was embarrassed when his friend told me that I was some kind of money-grubbing leech, and he just stood there and allowed it to happen. I told him that I do not want Todd around anymore and that he wasn't welcome in the house. My husband thinks I'm overreacting, and that's just how Todd is. Am I the jerk for asking my husband not to bring him around anymore? Well, who do you agree with? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Revolution against our HOA. My wife and I moved into a 64 townhome community that was 10 years old at the time. The HOA board was comprised of 5 members that were original homeowners when the community started and had been the sole board members since the community started. Their sense of entitlement was bat crazy. They thrived on their quarterly walkthrough of the neighborhood as they could write up every single home for some kind of violation regardless of how minor the offenses were. Everyone gets a violation letter. Our first letter, the first month living there, was that our garage door paint was starting to peel. It was a 2-centimeter screw where the panels met. It needed to be repainted, the siding needed to be power washed, there was a patch of green moss behind a bush, and the sliding door on the deck was dirty. There was dirt on the bottom of the door from recent rain, and it needed to be washed. We had 30 days to fix the issues or begin accruing a fee of $25 a day until they are resolved. I asked around, and everyone gets these ridiculously petty letters every quarter. No matter what you did to maintain your townhome, you were going to get a letter about something. As this was going on, none of the major items the neighborhood needed fixed were addressed. After a decade since the construction, the ground had settled unevenly, and many homes had standing water issues where it wouldn't drain after a storm. The rainwater would sit around for 5 to 7 days in people's lawns. And more importantly, there had been a legal fight with the town since the community was started about our road being dedicated, meaning the town was responsible for snow removal. Our HOA dues included paying for our own snow removal, which we shouldn't have to, and we were paying an attorney for 10 years to fight this with no resolution in sight. Fast forward 2 years, and a few of us had enough and decided to band together to replace the board at the next annual meeting. The existing board got wind of this and hit us all with pages worth of issues of our properties, since if you have outstanding issues, you are not in good standing with the community, thus cannot run for a board position or even vote for those running. This petty move brought the community even closer, and we all spent the weekend before the meeting helping each other clean out their HOA honey-do lists. We took pictures, documented everything, then we had the US mail certified delivery of each packet with the completed list and photos to the HOA board who lived 75 feet away. Come board night, oddly enough, the lawyer was there to give an update that no progress had been made with the township on dedicating our road. He stuck around as we moved to the elections for the next board. We brought our signed petitions to add our names to the ballot. The board says we were not eligible as we all have outstanding issues with our property. We call BS with our receipts from the post office that they received our completed lists with documentation. They reply that they haven't reviewed them yet. We tell them that's not our problem and we are in good standing. The lawyer overhearing this states we are eligible to be on the ballot if we can confirm the issues with our homes were resolved prior to the meeting. The HOA president glares at the lawyer, but the lawyer just shrugs, saying, "The rules are the rules." With the exception of the 5 existing board members voting for themselves and each other, we are voted in nearly unanimously to replace them. I lead the revolution because I was tired of the petty BS where there were real problems in the neighborhood. Sadly, the rest of the elected board members vote me as president. I have no idea what I'm doing, but we spent the next few sessions removing all the dumb violations from most of the neighbors. We went through the bylaws to really focus on what's important. What happens next? Ends up, that lawyer was a friend of the previous president and was in no hurry to resolve anything as he was enjoying our excessive bill. I notify him if it's not resolved in the next 6 months, we're finding new representation. He was actually good at his job when pressed to do it. He won the case, the town appealed and tried to drag it out. He fast-tracked the appeal as it had been going on for 10 years and we won the appeal too. The town dedicated our road, then the lawyer pressed that it should have been done years ago. It wasn't him slowing things down, but the town. He ends up getting us a settlement from the judge for back pay on us paying for snow removal that the town was responsible for. We ended up using that settlement to have French drains installed across much of the community to clear the standing water issues. With the money left over, we fixed a lot of the neighborhood issues that the HOA should have been doing the whole time. Fences and sidewalks in disrepair, replaced dead trees and shrubs, etc. It was great getting all that done without having to hit up our capital reserve fund. I remained president until we moved a few years ago. Our family began to outgrow the townhome. Now we live in a new, larger development with a new HOA. I was asked to run for a position on it. I replied, not a chance. But I will lead a coup d'etat if I need to. Entitled parent tries to get her kids onto business class. In April last year, me and my family had decided to go to Pakistan to visit family. We rarely go since it's an 8-hour flight. It's a super hot country and tickets can be rather expensive. However, this particular time, my dad managed to find some plane tickets for business class, which were relatively cheap, and booked them. This was my and my siblings' first time traveling in business class, so needless to say, we were pretty excited. We get to the airport to check in, go through security, and chill in the business lounge until our flight. We were all in a good mood and were excited to see where we would be sitting on the plane. We were the first group to get on, and we all sat in our seats, just talking amongst ourselves. After we were boarded, economy class then boarded. This is where the story gets a bit interesting. I was sat next to this woman and her kid, and she explained it was her kid's first time going to Pakistan, so she booked business class so they would have a comfortable flight, which I thought was sweet. Shortly after, a woman from economy, entitled parent, walks through the curtains into business class and walks up to the lady, asking her why she is here. She told the woman what she told me, and it clicked that they were family, so I pretended to ignore them. Entitled parent then walks up to one of the hostesses and asks if she can pay to be upgraded to business class. The hostess explained it wasn't possible and went back to her seat. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. About 5 hours through the flight, my brother needed the bathroom. Both my parents were asleep, and I didn't fancy waking them up, so I took him myself. It took quite a long while since my brother was pretty much messing around and acting up. By the time we came back, we found 2 kids sitting in our seats. I asked them to move since I knew they weren't in business class. The business class section of the plane was small enough that you could basically see everyone who was sitting there. They refused to since they claimed their mother had allowed them to sit here. Not wanting to kick them out myself, I explained the situation to a flight attendant who escorted them back to their parents. I got my brother sat back down with mom and I returned to my seat, attempting to go to sleep. It was then that entitled parent storms in, furious that her kids have been kicked out of business class. She stated that the seats were empty and that me and my brother had stolen their seats. When I explained that I had taken my brother to the bathroom and that they were in fact not empty, she just replied with, "Well, surely they can sit here for a bit. It's not harming anyone." The flight attendant tried to calm her down and get her to leave, but she wouldn't budge. "Why don't you sit with the rest of us?" She then shouted, clearly angry at the fact that she was not on the same level as us. At this point, my dad had woken up. He is a pretty grumpy guy when he is woken up rudely, and even more so if someone disrespects his family. He basically told entitled mom to shut her mouth and called her crazy in Urdu, to which entitled parent got offended and started yelling back at him in Urdu. My dad, not wanting to stoop to her level, just rolled his eyes and put on his headphones. After her meltdown, another flight attendant, this time a male, explains that they may have to stop the plane and make an emergency stop to kick her off the flight if she does not calm down. This seems to shut her up, and she goes back to her seat, sulking. Luckily, nothing happened after that, and we would enjoy the rest of the flight in peace. Also, turns out the woman I was sitting next to was entitled parent's sister and was so apologetic to everyone for her sister's behavior. I couldn't imagine being sisters with someone like that. If you're going to walk out on your bill, make sure you won't have to come back. I've been in the service industry for about 4 years now. I've had my fair share of rude customers, complaints, and the occasional, but mostly rare, dine-in dashers. It's part of the job, nothing I take personally. Last night, I had a two-top arrive about 30 minutes to close. These two seemed like they were on their first date. I could tell off the bat that they hadn't known each other very long by the way they spoke and interacted with one another. They were extremely polite and didn't need much attentiveness, so I figured it would be an easy table. Those two got full-course meals. I'm talking multiple beverages, appetizers, baskets of fresh bread, combo entrees with add-ons and extras, salads, dessert, everything you can think of. About halfway into their meal, they call me over and the man starts explaining that his half-eaten, well-done sirloin steak is overdone and tough to chew. No kidding. I offer to grab my manager whenever he threatened he will not be paying for the entrees, only everything else. I happily obliged and told him I will send my manager their way to work something out and promised him he will not be forced to pay for his half-eaten steak. My manager came to a compromise with him and gave them a generous discount from their $160 tab. This brought their total down to $38. My manager ran their checkout for them and they seemed very pleased with the outcome. By the time I arrived back to the table, the two were gone. I didn't panic too much considering the lady had left her purse. I immediately went to the host stand to let them know the two from my table had both went to the restroom and not to buzz it off yet. I figured they would be back shortly and be ready to pay. 5 minutes passed, then 10 minutes passed. Then I paid a visit to the women's restroom, which was empty. I grabbed my manager to let her know that they belong on the world's most dumbest criminals and passed off the lady's purse for safekeeping in the office. I walk up to the host stand a short while later to discover my manager is on the phone with the lady who left her purse's mother. She informed my manager that her daughter forgot her bag, to which my manager replied she forgot to pay the bill too. This lady's sweet mother was offering to pay their bill as well as pick up the purse shortly. My manager politely declined and told her that if her daughter wanted her bag back, she will have to show her face and come pay her bill. I'm getting ready to leave for the night when my manager hands me a credit card and tells me the lady from my walkout is here to pay her tab. My manager told me to run the charge and then hand her back the card myself. At this point, I'm thrilled to see she was willing to come back in and face anybody. I swipe her card and hand her the receipt with the biggest smile on my face. I told her I hope she had a really great night and to be safe on her way home. She wouldn't even look me in the eyes. I stood and waited while she signed to amp up her nerves. Zero tip, but so satisfying. If you're going to commit a crime and walk out on your bill, make sure all your ducks are in a row. Entitled mom thinks my colorblindness is contagious, tries to get me banned from school fair. Little disclaimer, this happened 6 years ago, so lockdown has nothing to do with this. Bit of backstory. I am mildly colorblind, and I have had this my whole life. I mostly struggle with telling the difference between pink and yellow, but there are more colors out there that I can't see. This all started when the primary school my younger brother, 11 at the time and not colorblind, was putting on a party/fair. I don't remember what it was for, but I think it had something to do with fair trade. Now my mother made me cut out some paper chains along with other people in the gym to prepare for the fair. More and more people left until it got to the point where it was just me and another kid and an old gentleman at the back. Remember this part. And this kid was professional at making paper chains. I struggled to keep up. I was sitting closer to the piles of paper than he was. When the kid ran out of paper, he kindly asked me to pass some of the yellow paper. I pulled some pink paper out of the pile, thinking it was yellow, and he looked at me confused. So I responded with, "Wait, is this pink or yellow?" And he responded with, "Pink," and led me to the yellow paper. I apologized and told him I was colorblind, and he started to ask questions. They were questions of curiosity, such as, "Do you see red?" or "What color is that?" Then enters entitled mom. The entitled mom in this case was the kid's mother and had entered the gym looking for the kid's father and overheard us talking about my colorblindness. The entitled mom first said, "Blank, sweetie, please keep your distance. I don't want you to become colorblind as well." Me, being utterly confused, replied with, "Excuse me, you can't catch colorblindness from another person." The entitled mom then proceeded to give me BS looks and then walked out of the gym with her son in tow. I'd say about 5 minutes later, she returns with the head of the department and said, "Yep, he's the one." The head then approached me and said, are you the one causing disturbances down here? Me, no. What do you mean? This lady thinks my color blindness is contagious and that I'm going to give it to her son. The head, of course, did not believe me, being a 14-year-old at the time who slacked off a lot. My mother overheard the conversation and walked in and started to defend me until the entitled mom yelled, "Color blindness is contagious, and you're going to give it to everyone here if you don't leave." Me and my mom looked at her, utterly shocked, and the head was unaware on whose side she was on, until she said, "All right, Mrs. Entitled Mom, and you, Cheerio Dude number 2, I'm going to ask you both to leave as you're both making a disturbance here." But then the old gentleman at the back of the gym stood up and said, "There is no disturbance here, miss. Mrs. Entitled Mom is the only one harassing anybody here," before sitting back down again. Having heard his side, the head banned the entitled mom from the school fair. Don't worry about the kid though, he got to go with his dad. I saw the entitled mom drive out of the school and I haven't seen her since. Also, as it turns out, the old gentleman was the school's former headmaster. Edit. I want to make it absolutely clear that the kid did nothing wrong. It was all the entitled mom. Edit 2. As a response to the concern in the comments section, I received a pair of colorblind glasses in 2016, which have been helping me out massively. Edit 3. This one post got me 5 new followers. Edit 4. The head was the head of the department, not the entire school. I thought I made that absolutely clear when I mentioned head of the department when I introduced her. Are there any colors that you have trouble seeing or confused with others? Please let us know. If it's not pink, then it doesn't matter. He punched me over a fender bender. I destroyed his life. I was working as a civilian with the US military overseas, and I lived off base in an apartment complex popular among the US military. One morning, I accidentally hit another soldier's vehicle. Upon exiting the vehicle, I noticed that both our vehicles were what you would call a hoopty. A hoopty is an old car that's pretty beat up and has been passed around from service member to service member, and they generally sell for $1,000 to $2,000. I also recognized that I was at fault for the accident. It was a very minor accident. His rear bumper was dented in slightly, but I could hear both our cars still running. I approached the driver, who had already gotten out, and he was in uniform, and I apologized and said if it was all right with him, I'd like to negotiate a payment that I will pay him in cash, and we don't involve the authorities. I wanted to keep this simple. I'll be honest, the accident was so minor, I honestly expected him to say, "Nah man, it's good." But even if he wanted some money, I would have paid him. I've always been in the opinion if you have a fender bender and can negotiate agreeable terms between both the parties, it's best to not involve insurance/police. He told me he wanted to call the police. I said we could call the police or we could go on base together and I could give him $300. He said that wasn't enough, so I upped my offer to $500. He proceeded to punch me in the face. It was a sucker punch. He got into his car and took off, and in the process nearly ran me over. Now, I had a black box in my car which recorded everything. I went to the provost marshal's office on base, the police station, and reported the accident and the assault and showed the MP my footage, which they used his license plate to track him down. I was also asked if I wanted to involve the local authorities/press criminal charges off base. Honestly, I felt like the soldier would learn his lesson if I let UMCJ, the military court basically, handle this, and I said, not at this time. I was told it was an option. The end result was the soldier in question got 60 days of extra duty, reduction in rank, and forfeited a portion of his paycheck. Essentially, if he dealt with that, this would have been the end of the whole ordeal. Honestly, at this point, I assumed our little ordeal was over. Well, a few days after his punishment was decided on, which was not long after the incident itself, I was in the commissary, grocery store on base, shopping, when the soldier who assaulted me saw me and began to insult me. I told him he needed to calm down, that he should have learned his lesson. He told me I was a jerk who didn't know how to take a punch. I reminded him that I held back on destroying his life. He told me he's already been punished and I can't touch him again. He left me be. A store employee witnessed the entire encounter, and I got the employee's details and reported this interaction to his command. His commander told me he had been ordered to not interact with me and would take action. His commander also recommended I involve the local authorities since this soldier obviously isn't learning his lesson. So I did. I contacted an attorney. The attorney was unsure if we could successfully sue the soldier and said he would need a cash payment to take the case. Honestly, I was mad and wanted to teach this guy a lesson. I agreed, and it was not cheap. To keep this story short, we ended up in a court off base. We presented our evidence. The soldier in question had decided to represent himself. Several times in the court, he had outbursts. The judge ended up granting me a judgment of approximately $50,000 US. When the judgment was given, the soldier called the judge a jerk and that the army would cover for him. So the judge changed his judgment to $80,000, and the judge then asked me if I wanted to press charges against this soldier in criminal court. Honestly, it was obvious this guy wasn't going to learn a lesson. I told the judge I wanted to pursue criminal charges in addition to the judgment. My lawyer later advised me that if I ever wanted to see the money, I should pursue an international hold. With my judgment, it's likely that a judge would grant me an international hold. An international hold is basically where the soldier would not be allowed to leave the country until I was paid my $80,000. Also, he told me that according to the agreement between the US military and the host country, the US military would honor the international hold. Basically, the US military would not protect him or move him out of country to avoid punishment. Honestly, by this point, I had paid my lawyer thousands of dollars, and I honestly didn't feel like paying thousands of dollars and getting nothing for it. So I said yes, I want to go forward with the international hold. About a month later, the international hold was granted, and the US military was informed of this. 2 months after that, the criminal case was over, and the soldier was sentenced to 90 days in jail. By this point, the soldier had been moved onto the base into his barracks by his commander. I remember the day I was informed the MPs handed him over to local authorities to begin his 90-day jail sentence. Did I mention he still owed me $80,000? I heard nothing for a year, and then one day I get a call from his commander. His commander wants me to make a statement in regards to the case. I go in and make the statement. During this statement, I find out that the US military was in the process of chaptering the soldier out of the US military. The commander also informed me that he was close to coming up with the money to pay me so he could have the international hold lifted. The commander also asked me if my lawyer would be willing to make a statement. I contacted my lawyer, who also made a statement about the facts of the case. A few weeks later, his ex-wife contacted me. When this all started, I knew he was married. Guess his wife decided to divorce him. She informed me that her ex-husband had the money and needed the details on how to pay me. I provided her the details, and a few days later I got the payment and contacted his ex-wife to inform her I had been paid. She then asked me to send a receipt so he could have the international hold lifted and return to the States. I asked her how he got the money, and she said he maxed out his credit and also had his family help out. Also, during this conversation, I had found out that the army had chaptered him out of the military. I sent her the receipt, and that was the last I ever heard from his side. I took his $80,000 and bought myself a brand new car and used the rest of the money to put down on an investment property. FAQ. This post blew up. I turned off inbox replies because it was too much, and I felt like answering some common questions. Am I worried about the guy getting revenge on me? No, he's back in the States and I'm still overseas. He most likely has a criminal record, which means he wouldn't even be allowed past immigration. Plus, since then I've taken a new job, moved, etc. Not connected to his incident, just how things are. Plus, this happened many years ago. The amount seems high? The actual amount was in a foreign currency, and I rounded up and adjusted figures, but it was very high. I did suffer from a black eye, and his behavior after the fact didn't help. Also, this incident happened in an Asia country during a time period in which we had several other high-profile incidents with US service members messing up. My incident was not high-profile at all, but that all played a role. Honestly, I expected around 15 to 20,000. Also, in this country, settlements for damages are based upon your ability to pay and tend to be on the higher side. I think the court also thought he was an American and could afford it. However, the amount even shocked my lawyer. Why did his commander recommend I take this to civil authorities? I got the feeling his commander was tired of this soldier. I suspect I wasn't the first incident. What country did this happen in? I don't wish to disclose that. However, several people in the comments section have guessed correctly. Actually, someone who is familiar with the incident PM'd me, so this blew up more than I intended. I will say this, it happened in Asia, in a country with a large troop presence. Why did I go so far? Honestly, that was never my intention. In fact, I decided to report to the military instead of going straight to the local authorities because I figured doing so would allow us to deal with the issue in-house and his punishment would be limited. I was right, he didn't learn his lesson. However, once I got the local authorities / my lawyer involved, it turned into something I didn't expect. Also, by the time that dust had settled, I had paid my lawyer a significant sum of money, had to use up my vacation days. In total, this entire incident cost me thousands of dollars in lawyer costs vacation time, etc. So I did want my money back at that point. Why did he get a jail sentence for simple assault? So in this country, they do not like to give suspended sentences to foreigners. I suspect a local national would have gotten a suspended sentence. I do have a local national friend who was involved in an assault many years ago, and he got 90 days suspended sentence. However, my guess is the judge gave him jail time instead of suspended sentence because he was a foreigner. However, I was not involved very much in the criminal case. Questions about his wife/ex-wife. Truth be told, I don't know much about this. I do not know if she was his ex-wife because of this or not. I also never saw her in person. The only involvement I had with her was at the very end. Would you press charges on someone if they punched you or not? Please let us know.
How you gonna press charges after I knock you out, bruh?
Lay off a third of the team and expect us to work harder? We'll see about that. So this happened sometime in the 2010s, somewhere in the UK. That's all I'm revealing. I worked for a medium-sized PLC and a small team that worked with the sales department getting quotes. I had previously worked in another team in a different department in the same company as well. This also includes elements of malicious compliance. I'll post this there as well. So to set the scene, the company had recently had some issues with regulators and senior management were either oblivious to the damage they were doing or didn't care. They were trying to save costs, but going about it the wrong way. So my team consists of 6 team members and a manager. We were fairly busy and often helped out on other teams as well, and they would in turn help us. This is important for later. So we are all called into a meeting without warning and told that due to declining work tickets, they were laying 2 of us off. They did say 2 people were safe, the manager and his sidekick. They made us reapply for our jobs, including doing a test, following the letter of the law on redundancy, which had nothing to do with our roles. It also became apparent during the process that the company flat out lied, or at the very minimum manipulated the data used to come up with their conclusions of falling ticket numbers. They dropped by 13 from year 1 to year 3. Bear in mind, it was a total of several thousand tickets a year. In the end, the company carried on and 2 team members were removed and made redundant, one of whom took a golden handshake, the other sued the company for various things, not really worthy of mention here, and won. After the dust settled, it also became apparent manager secured his sidekick's position despite him being the worst member of the team in terms of work done and work quality. So in the weeks after, the entire team were too busy to help other teams who then stopped helping us, so a huge backlog of tickets also built up. We also got threatened with disciplinary proceedings if our backlog didn't come down, but were also refused any overtime. During the process, we had also been admonished for skipping steps and getting quotes, steps that often took a significant amount of time and served no purpose. So me and 2 others remaining, not including the sidekick, decided to do everything by the book down to every last bullet point. This made the backlog of work even worse, but they couldn't say anything. One week, we had another meeting with HR, the sales director, and our manager to discuss the issues. We all calmly said, "We are sorry, but we have to follow the guidelines and rules laid down, and this is as fast as we can work." We were also asked to start helping out the other teams again, as we should be team players. Again, we said, "We are sorry, but we can't. Our workload is too high, and it's also not in our contracts that we have to do other teams' work." This went on for several months, and management still refused to believe we were overworked. When it was time for holidays, we realized that we hadn't changed the amount of people allowed off from 3. So we all booked holidays. They both went abroad, and I decided to visit family at the other end of the UK. Of course, when manager realized, a week before, he went nuts and another meeting with HR was called. We all calmly said, "Sorry, but we checked the rules for our team, and 3 people, out of 4, manager could do what he likes, can be off at any one time." And again stood our ground and all went on leave for 2 weeks each. This caused even more chaos at work, as you can imagine. The sales director, after this, hatched a plan to get the Indian teams, we had offices in India and other offshore places, to be trained up by us and to help us. However, they demanded we fly out to spend weeks there training them. Again, we all refused, as it's not in our contracts to be trainers or to have to work abroad. They ignored the fact I didn't have a passport at this time. So poor old manager and his sidekick traveled out and trained them for weeks. Eventually, both stayed for over 2 months and failed to train them. We would send low-effort tickets to them, and they would mess it up, and we simply said, "Sorry, to fix this, we need to do it again." So after 6 months, they gave that idea up entirely. After around a year or so of this, we all decided to all seek other employment, having found we could not trust the company or manager anymore. and we all found roles elsewhere within a week of each other, so all handed our 4-week notices in, and were due to all leave on the same day. Now, the female member of the team, who was a very learned person, and she revealed in all of our contracts any documentation we create is ours, and we can do with it how we wish when we leave. So we hatch a plan. In the final week we are there, we move all our digital stuff to one location, including all my manuals and cheat sheets for my previous team. They both did the same with their previous positions within the company. On our final day, we bring in our own external drives and with IT's help, download and remove all documentation and delete the copies on the company systems. We all said our goodbyes and at the end of the day quite happily told our manager what we had done. He exploded and demanded it back, and we calmly tell him no. According to the letters of our contracts, this is ours and we choose to remove it with us. We were later told by friends who remained that the sales director had a fit because now no one was doing quotes for him. Gladly, we all have great new places and keep in touch. The time I told a mean old man to shut up and leave me alone. A couple years ago, I worked at a national hardware store chain. I had an encounter with a mean old man. Let me specify that when I say I worked at the store, I didn't work for the store. This is important later. I worked for the company that supplied the flowers and shrubs and trees, but I was always at that store when I worked. For some background, I'm pursuing a degree in forestry, minoring in horticulture. I've taken 3/4 of the classes needed for a bachelor's in horticulture. For personal reasons, I'm leaving it at that and coming back later for it. And I worked for 2 semesters in a plant biology greenhouse/conservatory on campus. I also keep well over a dozen plants on my own. All I mean by saying that is that I know how to water plants. I also know that when you water plants that are for sale, needing to look nice, and bunched together tightly and frequently shaded, you want to avoid drenching the foliage so the plants can breathe and take up water to avoid root rot and the foliage drying. Presentable flowers get sold, rotting flowers do not. I was watering them by using a long handheld sprayer, shooting the water into my cupped hand and directing the water underneath the foliage with my hand. Honestly, I thought it was a clever move since no one else watered them that way and 1/3 of our stock seemed to be lost to rot. In comes the 60-year-old man who tells me I'm doing it wrong. His wife is nearby. I ignore him. He tells me I'm doing it wrong again. I've had a long day by this point. It's hot and in the middle of summer in the Midwest, and I'm irritated, so I keep ignoring him. Then he tells me that I'm wrong again, and that I'm stupid for doing it the way I'm doing it, and that he's owned a commercial greenhouse for 30 years, so he knows what he's talking about. After he told me I'm stupid for doing it this way, I turned to him and said sternly and loudly, "Shut up and leave me alone." He stood there for a second, a brief moment of shock, and then he yelled, "Where is your manager? I'm going to report you." Remember how I said that I don't work for the store? I look at him and said, "He oversees 7 different stores in this part of the state. Good luck finding him." It should also be noted that my boss was a woman, not a man, but I opted not to say that. At this point, he was getting really flustered. His wife came over looking sheepish and put her hands around his arm and gently started pulling him away. Nothing ever happened, so I assumed he either couldn't find someone who cared or didn't tell anyone. Have you ever had someone tell you that you're doing something wrong and they didn't know what they were talking about? Please let us know. Oh God, those are the worst kinds of people. Don't stick to our agreement? You shouldn't have been stepping out. This is a story from a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And by that, I mean it happened 3 years ago at a pizza place I used to work at. I was a delivery driver for 6 years at various pizza places, picking up and moving on to greener pastures whenever it suited me. Granted, that only happened a couple times because I am unfortunately a very loyal employee. To be honest, I should have done that before this whole thing ever even happened. The store I was at was part of a nationwide franchise, and the waters had gotten choppy. All of the managers quit at once, and they just couldn't seem to get one to stick around. It got so bad that the area manager had to come in as an acting GM and brought a manager from another store with him. These two are the main characters of this story. Well, besides me, obviously. For the purpose of this story, we'll call them Jeff and Kate, and I'll just be me. Jeff was 45 and had been with the company for a long time before I started, worked himself up from the position of driver all the way to being the one to oversee about 20 stores. He was actually married to another area manager. I got along okay with Jeff for the most part. On the other hand, Kate and I got on like a house on fire, both being ladies of a similar age. She often confided things in me that would soon come back to bite her, figuratively. I considered myself a decent employee as far as pizza slingers go. Came to work on time, did all of the dishes, got along with everyone, and had the best delivery times. Because of this, I usually landed all the best shifts, including opening on Saturdays. If you've never worked a tip job, you know that shift is the most coveted out there. Working through both the lunch and dinner rush before going home is well worth having to get up earlier. That information is relevant to the story, trust me. You see, there are always two drivers who do that shift. One comes in earlier and leaves earlier, and I was the one who got to come in just before we flipped on the open sign and went home once dinner rush began to die down. This is also relevant. The final vital bit of info you need for context is that my brother goes a bit wild at Christmas. His favorite thing to do is book an entire movie theater for everyone he knows to see a movie of his choice. This particular year was when The Last Jedi came out, and he is a Star Wars fanatic, so that was what we were going to see. Unfortunately, it would be at 6 on a Saturday, at least 2 hours before I would get off. At this point, Jeff and Kate had been with us for 3 months without managing to find suitable replacements, and I made an arrangement with other opening driver to switch shifts because his ended right when I would need to leave to make the movie. I then cleared it with Jeff and he agreed to let me go at 5:30. I was all set, or so I thought. You see, that Saturday we started busy, very busy. So busy that at 5:30 when I went to hand Jeff my slips, he had already dispatched me out on a double delivery. I took them, but reminded him that I needed to leave when I got back. I just hoped the trailers were long enough that I didn't miss much of the beginning of the movie. I got back from my double, and by that point, it was already 6 and the theater was 20 minutes away. I had to leave. Once again, I went to hand my slips to Jeff, but he got in my face. "You leave when I say you can leave," he told me. "You're not going to let me?" I asked, incredulous that he was going back on our deal. I came in early. I did my time, dang it. He looked so very smug. "No." Well, I made a decision right then and there. There are so many pizza jobs out there that they needed me more than I needed them. I took my slip book, you know, the kind that you can see in restaurants. I found they're great for deliveries because not only can you store all of your slips in them, but they're hard enough for customers to bear down on to sign. Anyway, I slapped that in his hand and said, "Fine then, I quit." It was his turn to look incredulous. After making sure I meant it, he checked me out and I left the store fuming. I missed the entire opening of my movie. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. You remember how I said Kate would confide in me? She loved to tell me all about how often she and Jeff would meet at a hotel after work. She even horrified me by telling me Jeff would turn off the cameras so they could go in the back office when the store was empty, in a chair I had sat in multiple times. Kate was even so obliging to give insignificant details like the date and time that this happened. So I put an anonymous call to the franchise's HR and told them what to look for when it came to checking the tapes. I told them everything Kate had told me, but I still wasn't content with leaving it there. So I went to my local pizza place that just happened to be in Jeff's wife's area. Remember when I said she was also an area manager? And I got to gossiping with the workers there while they made my pizza. I was well aware it would make it back to her. Food employees can't keep such juicy gossip to themselves. Jeff got demoted to store manager, then transferred to the same store in his wife's area I went to so she could keep an eye on him. I guess it didn't work out because last I heard, Jeff's wife divorced him and he no longer worked for that franchise. And none of that would have happened if he had just let me leave on time. Edit. This got way more attention than I was expecting. Thank you so much to everyone who has awarded it. That being said, there are a few details I left out because I thought they would bog down the post. I'll add them here. 1. Jeff had let the other morning driver, the one whose shift I took, go home before me, despite claiming we were too busy for me to go too. 2. I said Jeff and I got along okay, and that was not entirely the truth. Before he started seeing Kate, Jeff had hit on me pretty relentlessly. I turned him down, of course. I am the firm believer that you should not dip your pen in company ink, and he did not handle the rejection well. He would often do petty things to get back at me, but it wasn't until this situation that it really got on my nerves. He was the kind of person who acted friendly to your face and did crappy things behind your back, exemplified best by cheating on his wife. 3. His wife had been out of town for a few months, training area managers out of state, which is probably why he got away with the affair for even that long. 4. He would have been caught eventually anyway. His and Kate's relationship was pretty open in our store because neither of them seemed to grasp the concept of discretion. I just happened to be the one who blew the whistle. 5. Finally, Fred had a grudge against my brother because he sued the same company for having to work unpaid overtime. This was his attempt at doing both of us over at once. Lady upset because a stranger didn't comfort her in a public restroom. This story is of family friends who had the displeasure of working closely with this woman at their job. So, for a little context, this person, who we will refer to as entitled parent, works with our family friend and is that kind of person who thinks they're friends with everyone they talk to. But in reality, no one really cares to have them around. Entitled parent also had a pair of pet rats whom she talked about and treated almost exactly like you would human kids. If family friend ever mentioned their kid to other coworkers, entitled parent would butt in and begin comparing the totally comparable struggle of raising a kid versus rats. It's also important to note that family friend loves animals and has many pets, so they understand both the struggles of raising people and pets and knows firsthand that it's a completely different realm. Family friend is also a fairly nice person, so anytime entitled parent would butt into these convos, flaunting her precious rats, they would never say anything to entitled parent. Now comes the story. Entitled parent had sadly lost both of her rats, and as you could imagine, this lady was completely distraught. Many of us know the pain of losing a beloved pet, and family friend was no stranger to it, as they've lost many in their lifetime, so they sympathized with entitled parent in this troubling time. Family friend personally reached out to entitled parent, sending their condolences, to which entitled parent replied with something along the lines of, "Thank you, it's just so hard, you know. I've gone to the bathroom like 10 times today to cry. I even left a meeting early cause I just can't take this pain." Later that same day, family friend was on their lunch break and a sniffling entitled parent came to join them. Entitled parent, of course, began to voice her dismay unprovoked and went on to discuss what travesty had just befell her. Entitled parent told family friend she went to the bathroom for yet another cry break, and as she sat there, sobbing on a public toilet, she heard someone walk in. The random stranger went along their business and left the restroom. Normal thing to do, right? Well, not to entitled parent. I was told entitled parent said something along the lines of, "That stupid jerk didn't even ask if I was okay, or offer to console me. What kind of monster do you have to be to leave someone crying in the bathroom?" Family friend was absolutely shocked at such a comment. How is not confronting a random crying stranger who is in a random bathroom stall something worthy of being called a jerk? Even still, family friend is non-confrontational, so nothing was said to entitled parent. Entitled parent even relayed this story to other coworkers in hopes for some sympathy, to which none was received. This type of behavior still continued in the next following weeks, according to family friend. An entitled parent was getting on everyone's nerves, yet nothing was ever said. This was the end of family friend's story with entitled parent. But even still, they still try to understand why entitled parent was like that. If it was just entitlement or some other factor causing her to be like this. We still have no clue to the answer of this, nor the answer to why someone would go out of their way to hide the fact they are crying, yet also wish to get consolation for it at the same time. So Karen, what did you think of today's stories?
They were horrible.
Horrible? How dare you? These were some of the best we've ever read.
Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through, dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers.
Look, Karen, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army.
Re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason.
It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit.
No, I'm not. Alright guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
They're not going to listen to you.
And if you'd like me, or Karen,
what?
To record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.
Never.
And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video.
Like heck I will.